podcast. We're now on to episode 5, and I've got some awesome news for you this time. We are actually at 501c3 status, and we're actually recognized at a federal charity now. So that means all you folks that have been throwing money at us and helping us out and doing all that cool stuff for us since February, you can now write that off on your income tax here in the U.S. as well as any country that recognizes 501c3, which there are a few. This does not count on your state taxes, though, unless it's specific to your state. We actually have to go and register in all those different states specifically in order to get tax exempt from a state income tax. So if you're in Michigan, where you have a state income tax, for instance, it doesn't get wrote off on those particular taxes, but everyone has to pay that lovely federal income tax. So it's a good way to knock yourself down a couple tax brackets and get around all that those awful tax rates that we get from our lovely federal government by donating to an awesome group like ours that allows people to play video games and creates podcasts like this and gets little mini documentaries, which we've got some of those in the pipeline now, which is very exciting. If you haven't heard already, the creators of Vintage Story will be joining us for our first little mini documentary. But today we're going to be talking about games, and there's actually a few to go through, and we're going to get into a little bit of trading cards too. But before we get into all those, I'm going to let the guests here, as well, some of our regulars as well, introduce themselves.
Hi, my name's Erica. I'm Rom Girl in both Discord and on Twitch. If you wanted to come check out some of our gameplay there, I stream pretty much weekly.
Hello. I am Justin, or Juko High in the server. Been here a couple times now, but for anyone who doesn't know, I help run one of the Overwatch teams in the server. I also have my my hands in a couple places right now in the server. We're trying to see what we can do behind the scenes from a production standpoint when it comes to televising more of the teams within the server and maybe getting a couple tournaments up, and hopefully I can help push that along. So that's what I've been up to since we've last seen each other, and then I'll pass it off to our last guest.
Hey, I'm Easton. My Discord scream name is Artorius, and I'm also on an Overwatch team in the R Fury Discord.
Awesome.
Have you on the show with us.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
I am Jacob, also known as Econ Brony, and the two of us are actually board members here at Or Fury, doing the stuff behind the scenes, all that the legal stuff, like getting us the 501c3 and paperwork and fun stuff like that. It's so exciting. But anyway, I'm gonna pass it off to Justin here to talk about our first game on today's agenda.
Yeah, so a lot of people are probably getting excited for the latter part of this year when it comes to games, because we're in the beta phase of so many games right now. One of the ones that just recently concluded their test, because their test was very short over the span of a weekend, was the game Gundam Evolution, which is going to be in the category of games of team-based first-person shooters. So it's going to compete with the likes of like Overwatch and like Paladins. And I think because of its more MOBA style abilities similar to Overwatch, I think people coming from MOBA games like League and Smite are going to find definitely a lot of comfort with a certain part of the cast with this game. I think also there's a lot of dynamic gameplay that's not going to appeal to like the big team shooters, but maybe more of the arena type shooters like Halo Infinite. I know a lot of people are coming over from that game based on the people who are streaming the game and making content for it. I see Call of Duty obviously is going to go into that arena shooter category, and anyone who's familiar with like Doom and Quake and all like the older games like that. But I think that the like I said, the big team battle like Battlefield and in games of that ilk, and then more of the strategy like Valorant and CS:GO type shooters are probably not going to be as interested in this game. But 6v6 is the format that they're going to be having for this game. So copy paste what Overwatch 1 has, which is interesting going into the new game for Blizzard, because they're going to have a 5v5 shooter. So I don't think the two are going to overlap nearly as much as we think. when it comes to picking one game over the other. I think it's going to really depend on the play group that you're trying to foster within the game. If you have a larger group of people, then you might lean more towards Gundam. And then if you are more for the 5v5, which has become like the industry standard of like MOBAs and stuff like that, I think that you're going to more want to lean towards Overwatch 2. So hopefully there isn't a lot of overlap. Hopefully just people enjoy both games separately and they don't cannibalize each other in the market. So I don't know how many people are like really been excited about this game, but this game got its first like tangible announcement about a year and a half ago. And it excited obviously like the Gundam community, which are, not starved for content. There's plenty of stuff for them to work with, but a more heavy duty video game is something that I know for sure they've been wanting for a long time. And it looks like they have the tools to constantly push out updates for this game. And I really hope that they do that come launch. And from playing the beta, I think there's a lot of issues. Obviously, would come with like a new game like this that they didn't, they don't have the resources that like Activision Blizzard have or like Riot has. So I think from what they had, it's definitely understandable. But obviously, I don't want to like curb my criticism too much. I think some of the gunplay is very low standard for the industry right now. I think a lot of like the more advanced shooters like Call of Duty and people coming from that game or even Halo or Overwatch or even like even if you were playing Valorant and you wanted to come over to the shooter, you'd find yourself in a less responsive game than what you're used to, and it wouldn't feel as tactile. I think that was one of the major takeaways on the negative side that I found. But what overcame that most of the time was the movement in the game. Felt very, very fluid, felt like it never really felt like you were over inputting, if that kind of makes sense. For a lot of like arena shooters, sometimes your movement can get ahead of you and you just end up like over peaking a corner, or you just find yourself using an ability and it just takes you completely out of where you're trying to go. Everything felt very responsive when it came to that type of mechanic, the movement in this game, which for a lot of Gundam fans is almost more important than the gunplay, because it's a lot of, there's not a lot of healing in this game compared to some other first person team-based shooters. So being able to move comfortably to avoid damage is going to be kind of your best way of damage mitigation in a game like this. Obviously, there's like tank characters and stuff, but for the majority of the cast, being able to get behind cover quickly and efficiently is going to be 90% of what you're going to be trying to do in this game. It's very similar to like Doom in that aspect too. So I don't know how much content we've all consumed, but from what I've seen and played, it definitely seems pretty open-ended with like a meta, right? We tend to see team-based shooters kind of drive one narrative at a time when it comes to the meta. Like for Overwatch, like GOATS was a huge meta for a really long time. In League, the community around it, built the like lane system that we see now. It wasn't like the game that tried to push that. It was mainly the people. And so I don't think Gundam has that yet. I don't think, and it's like solved at all, which is like exciting. I don't think that's going to last forever, but I think in these fledgling stages, I think that's when it's most exciting, and I'm interested to see what comes out of that. But from what I did see, I think there's a couple characters that are potentially meta defining, but not really. There isn't like a consistent 6 that you're going to see most of the time, like you would in other games, right? So I think a couple of those characters that I noticed from playing are like Ashimar is one of the characters that I was like seeing a lot of. I was seeing a lot of Pale Rider as well. High mobility, high DPS output. Obviously, that's going to be something good. Some of the range characters like Sniper and Gundam were definitely getting used a lot. They're just like raw hit scan potential was just super high, and it was like very safe to play from range in that game because so many of the characters are close range, and you could definitely just like suppress a lot. I think that there's room for other characters to maybe impress later on down the line, specifically like Gun Tank. I think is really, really good if played in like a team environment, but I don't think that really was like fostered in the beta. Same thing goes for Barbados. I think they're just too glassy for the beta, kind of the opposite of Gun Tank. And I think with proper team play, their burst damage potential is higher than anyone else in the game, like sans ults. And I think that will be a very viable character come like league play or tournament play or just like more professional and competitive play. So I'm going to open up the floor to anybody who's watched any content or played the beta at all, and just what your initial thoughts on the game were, and then we can discuss more. I can give you any information that you need to finalize a thought and get this whole convo going.
So I didn't play the beta, but I did watch a few streams. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that it does feel sort of like Halo with like the map design, I guess, if that makes sense. And like the just how the maps are laid out and like the how you play around them. I think if Valorant was like Overwatch combined with CS:GO, I think this game is going to be more like Overwatch combined with Halo. So I think that's probably a big appeal to some people. I know Valorant's really decisive in that aspect, where some people like a really hardcore, straight up tactical shooter where gunplay matters and really just like you're the basic utility that everyone has access to is the secondary. So yeah, I think it has promise. I think it has the possibility to appeal to a lot of people, especially with the big release that Halo Infinite just had. But yeah, it does look unrefined. I think the shooting does look unrefined. I think some of the visuals are, I guess, kind of messy. Like I couldn't, like just from watching the streams, I couldn't discern like immediately, like, oh, this is Roadhog. It's a giant man with a hook. Oh, this is Ana. It's a little grandma with a sniper rifle. It is kind of messy, but I think obviously once you start playing the game, you'll be much more attuned to like who people are and what the characters do, like immediately. Like any Overwatch character, if you played Overwatch or just seen like a few streams, you know exactly what they do. So I think it definitely has promise, but I think the gunplay and then just like carving out its own little niche is going to be important.
Yeah.
I guess it's my turn to criticize a little bit of this. I've only watched a little bit of gameplay. I've not touched the game, but I think the first thing that I really kind of thought was entertaining is that the name of it is Gundam Evolution. But when you go through all of this, the rosters that you have to choose from, there's not actually that much to pick from. They're mostly mobile suits. So that's like they're trying to capitalize on the Gundam name, but there's a severe lack of Gundam models, like genuine Gundam models. And they have a couple of entire generations of characters that they could have drawn from, and they didn't. And I found that kind of unsettling because the entire Gundam Wing series kind of like brought the Gundams out to the open, and people chose their favorite Gundam models and kind of backed their characters too. And on top of that, I didn't see anything about the pilots either. So it looks like you're actually just operating the suit or the Gundam model that you get to choose, but there's no aspect of the human part of it with a pilot. So I feel like they've just kind of skinned over a character, and you just go play it, and it just happens to look like a mobile suit or a Gundam model. It really feels like as just more of the Gundam fan base more than the gamer shooting fan base. I was kind of disappointed in that part, but I'm not going to totally judge it on that. I feel like there's, for a game, especially the whole developer thing that we always talk about, there's probably plenty of room to adjust, add more characters. It'd be great if they even brought like 2 Gundam models from the actual Gundam Wing series to add to the original Gundam. That would be something I'd be looking forward to. And it's probably just nostalgia. But for games like this that are trying to capitalize on those names, nostalgia is huge. Your fan base will follow you if you can get the name to actually match what the people are expecting when you get there. And I feel like it's lacking right now. They've got the original Gundam in there. Thank goodness, something in there that people recognize. But a lot of the other mobile suit systems in there, I'm like, I watched all the series and I don't even recognize half of the mobile suits being used. And I felt that was really lacking for a game that's supposed to be toying on nostalgia. I was just like, well, the tank class, the sniper class, I don't recognize them, so they don't appeal to me right now. But the OG Gundam, well, absolutely, because everybody knows the OG Gundam. So I think that's still got to come around a little bit. Gameplay was really smooth, but like I said, again, it's just kind of a reskin over a first-person shooter. I don't feel the actual mobile suit or Gundam aspect of it, where you're actually like operating a mech, clunking around through the hallways. And it doesn't really give you that sense of scale either. It doesn't feel like you're in something 3 and 4 story buildings tall. It feels like it's just you're a normal sized human and it's just shoved into a robot. So I hope they toy with that. I hope they tweak that. If they do, then maybe I can live out my dreams, taking a mobile suit Gundam or an actual Gundam model and taking it out and fighting it. But for right now, it does just feel like another reskinned first-person shooter, and just needs more time to work out, like, because you only get like 9 classes I think to pick from right now. That's not huge. In Overwatch, we have over 30 characters to pick from, maybe 25. And especially with Overwatch 2 coming, more characters are coming. So Gundam needs to add to their roster if they really want to appeal to the first person shooter genre.
Yeah, definitely. I think that jumping off of what the criticisms that you both had, I think starting with Easton's, I get what you're saying about the visual or the clutter, right? I think that that was an issue I had because there's like a lot of character ability overlap in that game. And I think that aside from audio cues, which I think were good and solid, I could tell what abilities were from the audio I was hearing after I got like used to it. But I think visually, like a grenade from one character looks like a grenade from the other, and they do vastly different things. And I think that's problematic. And I think hopefully with like the results from the beta and then having time to refine the game, hopefully that it becomes a little bit easier. I think some of the other games are very like color based, right? Like if you have like one character's grenade is like blue and another character's grenade is like purple and then has like tracers behind it and that kind of stuff. I think that's how you discern from like an immediate raw input of like, okay, what is that thing that I might potentially get hit by? Do I need to act a certain way accordingly? I think they use colors as like a great thing. In Gundam, it's usually, or at least in that game, it's just been like red. Red is like, that's an enemy thing. Don't get hit by it, right? And instead of capitalizing on like maybe just make every, even if it's like a friendly grenade, just make it like outlined heavier if it's like an enemy's projectile or something like that. Or I'm not a game designer, so I'm not going to try to comment on that too much, but I do think there's ways to show what's going on easier than what they're doing right now. Because there's a mixture of that problem of like not knowing the difference between two different like abilities. And then also like the background that I found problematic is like, there's a lot of gray in the background and it makes it a lot of the suits rely on like gray and more like not vibrant tones, which I think is fine. I think that's part of the aesthetic of Gundam. Is just sometimes there's just a green guy or like a brown guy, and that's fine. And then that becomes their like aesthetic. And I think that's cool. But I also think if you're gonna make that the background color of your game in certain maps, I wouldn't say the whole game, then it's gonna become problematic for like ranged characters or actually characters that can't ADS to discern what you're seeing from range. I think that that's something that maybe they could tweak a little bit more, just with like a little bit more like heavier outlines. Maybe they'd be able to handle that a little bit better. But again, not a game developer, not going to comment on that too much. Just something I picked up. And then Erica, your point I think is really good. Of just like obviously like it's a reskin of an FPS, so you need to be able to discern yourself from other people. And the easiest way for them to do that is leaning into the Gundam like aspect of the game. And I do think that they failed on that front a little bit, at least in the beta. There are 14 different characters, and I think 4 of them are Gundams, right? There's Gundam Exia, there's Gundam Barbatos, and there's Turn A Gundam. And that's like when the game's called Gundam, maybe a few more, just a couple. I think the pilot thing is interesting. I think in this one game you're supposed to like role play as the pilot, I guess, but I do think like for most of the series, the pilots have been very integral to the show. So when you're like you said, when you're appealing to a fan base that's like entrenched in that idea, it's kind of like the long-term fans that are maybe less FPS fans and more Gundam fans are like, you're missing half the game or half the potential, right? And then you get the people who are just coming over from another FPS, especially Halo Infinite. I feel like that's the biggest crossover. They're like, yeah, I'm just a guy with a gun. Just show me where to go and I'll go, right? As long as the ability and gunplay and movement is cool, I don't care. So I think that they're trying to appeal to both with that strategy of like the Gundams or like the mobile suits or what anything is like the characters are there, right? And then also there's like deep-ish gunplay, but I don't think that they're fully going in either direction, which could be problematic. I'd probably prefer personally if they just went deeper into one category of just like forego the whole idea that it adheres at all to the content that we're used to consuming from like the shows and media and just go hard into a very polished FPS shooter. And that's how it discerns themselves. Or the opposite of that, which we mentioned, of just like be Gundam the game, just be able to live out the show, the medias that we consume, whatever, right? And I think not going full into either might potentially be problematic. Hopefully they later on down the line choose. Maybe with more characters, it will feel more immersive. But for right now, I think I agree with you that they're not quite, appealing to the demographic that they fostered, I think. But yeah, I think as the game progresses, hopefully we'll see more content that that more leans towards what we're going for. Hopefully, unlike like I know I'm gonna be kind of against the grain on this one, but I think Halo Infinite's launch was really, really solid. I think since then, the 6-month period that we've had, I don't think the amount of updates that the game needed have rolled out literally like enough, but if not at all. I think the attention to that game has been lacking compared to the industry standard that's been set by like battle royales and games like Valorant and stuff like that. Obviously, Overwatch is a terrible example because like they haven't touched their game seriously in like 2 years. But that's what the beta for Overwatch is for. So I shouldn't say that. But still, it's like I don't think Halo Infinite is being updated as quickly and as efficiently as it could. I remember you all had an issue that there was like you all couldn't even put on like a certain type of custom game 3 or 4 weeks into the game's life cycle, which is like if you can't queue up with like a custom game of Halo, then what are we doing here? That's like the 90% of the appeal of the game is just getting a group of friends in a lobby and just having at each other. But I mean, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't work at Microsoft. I don't work at Bungie or 343 or whatever anymore. You know, whoever it is. I don't know what's I'm not seeing through their lens, right? And I don't want to pretend like I know what's going on. But at the same time, there's an expectation that's been set. There's a precedent within the industry, and I don't think they've adhered to it. Hopefully, Gundam doesn't make that mistake. But I think with the resources they have, I think they are susceptible to it if they make enough mistakes that they have to backtrack. If they don't come out the gate running and have a good game that they slowly make better, and just instead have a game that there's a lot of mistakes that need correcting post launch, they're going to be stuck in like a year-long cycle of just fixing the mistakes that they didn't make in this interim until the game's release. And people are just going to not want to play the game, especially when you have like Overwatch 2 coming out as like your main competitor of new games. And then Halo Infinite as well. And any other game that that's going to be on the market come Q4. So I think that they need to really hit the ground running. I do want to say and pose the question of how do you all feel about this game in comparison to what I think is like the most similar game that's ever been on the market, Titanfall? If anybody's even played it. If not, that's fine. But I think that this game appeals to the same demographic, in my opinion, as the people that found Titanfall interesting, which does have a pilot aspect. So
Yeah, I was gonna say I know it has the pilot aspect, and it's made by the people who make Apex, and I know there's a few like carryovers from that game, but clearly they understood the pilot aspect and where they wanted to go with the gunplay, right? Like there's very unique weapons, and I think the fact that they got that polished right off rip, and that the characters like are defined and like very, very defined in what they do, I think that's what this game should aim to be.
I feel kind of bad that I know of Titanfall, but wouldn't even recognize any game footage of it because it's genuinely something I've not even stumbled across yet, not even from like YouTubers or streamers, but I've heard enough of the Titanfall jokes that I did know that it was some sort of mech operating type based game, but I didn't know anything else beyond that. So if it's comparable to Titanfall, then maybe they should take some hints from Titanfall then.
yeah, I would definitely, if you're interested in like the pilot aspect of Gundam at all, it's something I would definitely look into. It obviously isn't updated anymore because of Apex. Apex is like the entire studio that went to go making Titanfall 1, and then Titanfall 2 was creating the game Titanfall 3, pivoted when battle royales became like the new type of game that people were interested in, with like in the wake of Fortnite and PUBG, and instead made Apex. And I think for them it was like a great idea. And Apex is like a still updated game and is like, from what I understand, still very fun and interactive. So I think it was a good idea, but lost me as a like popular Titanfall fan. I like Titanfall 1 a lot. I played aggressively Titanfall 2. And it appealed to like the vacuum that Halo left for me, because I didn't play Halo after Reach. I tried 4 and I tried 5, but they didn't really resonate with me. So Titanfall 2 was what filled that void. And I was hoping that this game would also appeal to that same side of me, which I mean, just put me in a big mech and I'm interested, right? That's the dream, right? Is just be a big guy with a big weapon and just start hammering or blasting or whatever. So I also want them to, take from Titanfall, because it's a dead IP at this point. So we need something to fill the void. And I think this game could be that if it just leaned a little bit harder into that. And that game was the good middle ground between excellent gunplay, really, really reactive movement. If you played Apex, it's very similar. And then that pilot v mech aspect. And there was a, symbiotic relationship between you and your mech in the game because the mech could pilot itself if you weren't piloting it, which was super fun. So we'll move on from that. I think the TLDR is that the game needs work. And I'm optimistic, but I'm not ready to put all my eggs in that basket personally. But if it's a sick game, especially if it ends up with a price tag of $0, which seems to be the new industry standard, is release the game at $0, add a bunch of stuff that they can buy to make the game as aesthetic as they want, customize stuff, maybe character stuff like in League. But I'm interested, but cautiously
Before we
so.
move on, is the studio that's developing like a indie company?
I actually don't know off the top of my head who is developing it from the gameplay side. Let me take a quick peek. I was on their website, but it doesn't say like developed by HAL Laboratories or anything like that on it. So part of me wants to say that like Gundam's doing it in-house, but at the same time, like what experience would they have with that? So I'm sure that they've offshored it to somebody else. So let me see. If I look at Gundam Evolution on Steam. Okay. Gundam Evolution. All right. This will tell me in 2 seconds. So, I mean, Bandai Namco is the people that are producing the game. It doesn't look like they've told us like the actual team of people they've hired. Unless Bandai Namco is just like they have FPS talent on hand that they just had ready to go, which is like wild because I'm pretty sure they don't, but I'm sure they pulled in a bunch of studios with Bandai Namco money and they just had people contracted within that sphere. So I'm sure that's
Well,
what happened, but
Namco's not new to gaming.
no,
That's
definitely
been a name
not.
been around for
They
a long time,
produced
so
a
they've
ton of
got
stuff.
experience in it.
Yeah,
They've
but I've
definitely
seen
got a
most
lot
of their stuff in like
resources to
fighting
really
games and stuff.
develop this too.
Mhm.
So they won't have any excuses if it comes out and it's a wreck.
Yeah,
And on top
exactly.
of that, so if Bandai has a hold of this, then that means the licensing isn't an issue then. So that means they should have access to all
everything.
of their stuff. There shouldn't be just picking and choosing which characters and which models to put in there. So if they come out and saying they won't release any new characters because they're limited, I might kind of snark at it a bit and just be like, come on, you own the whole industry. You own the whole Gundam industry. Utilize your Gundam industry.
Right. I'm betting that majority of what they're lacking in characters is due to just development time, I'm assuming. Because the 14 characters, the game development was halted because of COVID. So I'm assuming they probably just like, well, we probably need to put out a product. And I'm assuming that's what the beta was, which was also delayed. So I'm assuming that's it. Hopefully with updates, we have people that are actually going to be making the characters we want to see. It has Barbados. That's the only guy I needed. So
I don't know a lot about like Gundam as like a culture, like media, like franchise, but I think an interesting thing to think about would be like look at Smash Brothers. So like if you have like established media characters, they're literally selling those to play. So I wonder if they're catering to this like very specific fandom, I wonder if they're gonna try to sell like a DLC character or like an unlockable character like League, using the influence that these established characters have, similar to like Smash Bros, where like Minecraft Steve they're selling for like $10. I think that's an interesting I think that's an interesting point to think about with this game.
Because why release the people that are exciting to release later on down the line early, right? They have Gundam, obviously, or Barbados, who's like a huge character now. But like you said, like, would you release Minecraft Steve at the beginning of the new Smash Brothers? Or you want him as one of the later DLCs to get more money? Obviously, the latter, and just leave like Dark Pit for the person that you put in the game, because that no one's spending $10 on Dark Pit, right? I might, because I'm a dummy, but like your average fan isn't going to be like, yo, that's Steve. Dude, I'm not going to buy him.
I would fear a microtransaction hell if that was what they were going to go with that. I would actually fear that something terrible, because the Gundam franchise is big enough. They could probably release like 3 DLCs every year and have you do like season passes and stuff. Cause there's just that many different, generations to follow on that. So, oh man, you put that fear in the back of my head, I might not even want to look at this game anymore.
Yeah, you said the
$10,
magic word.
$10
You
more,
said season
$10 more,
pass.
$10 more, $10 more.
And that's why they can put the $0 price tag on the initial
Exactly.
game too. That's what's going on here. It's
Exactly. I
like
think
we'll
we
draw
figured it
you
out.
in, and then we'll promise you the other models that you want later if you purchase the season pass. Yeah. Okay. Well,
What
I
would
think
be
we just
cool
predicted the whole next 3 years.
is the way that you unlock characters if this is through microtransactions. So ultimately it won't be cool, but bear with me. You have to build the character. You have to build the models in the game by collecting parts through like, I don't know, like a loot box system. And then when you get them all, builds the guy. Boom. Hire me.
Get him in there.
I figured it out.
$10, $10, $10, $10. Yeah, I'm sold already.
Yeah.
There it is.
If there's a way to obtain it in game, that would be like all the Overwatch skins. As long as you
Yeah.
just play, you generally have access to all of the aesthetic stuff anyway.
good mixture
Not
of
actual
both would be
characters though.
nice.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we've said the magic words enough. I think it's time that we move on to the big kahuna around these parts. The Activision Blizzard game that some of y'all might have heard of at this point. Which
The
for
small
anyone
name, I'm
watching,
sure it's growing.
oh yeah, for watching later, for anyone who doesn't know, today is the second day of the beta. The first day for most mortals, to be honest, but for the like actual release time, it's the second day of the Overwatch 2 beta. So pretty exciting stuff. Everything's in flux right now. But Jacob, you can introduce the idea if you want to get some thoughts off your chest.
All right. Well, we're talking about Overwatch 2 if you haven't figured it out yet. It's that game that we've heard about coming for quite some time now, and we're finally to the point where we have something to kind of sink our teeth into. We just got the beta passes ourselves, so we haven't been able to go in and actually play ourselves yet, but it's looking pretty promising. When they first announced that it was going to go to 5v5 versus 6v5, I gotta say, it's 6v6. I mean, that was a huge step back for me, and I'm just like, I don't want to give up my my second tank. I like my tanks, and being that I play mainly support and tank, and started as a tank main too. It was hitting kind of in the fields instead of me sitting back and going, oh, what's it going to actually do for the game? For me, I would have rather actually gone and done like a larger team if you're trying to find a way to bring more DPS in, because DPS seems to be the one that everyone wants to play. I mean, you go into Overwatch 1 and you queue up for DPS. Well, you might as well go out for dinner, go on a date, see a movie, and you might queue in and get to play. So I can see trying to, pull more people in that want to be able to play that DPS. And I guess one of those ways is going to be shrinking the team versus adding to it. And balance-wise, it probably may end up working better going the 5v5 route. I'm optimistic at this point. I've kind of come around a little bit more on it. Mainly, well, it's Overwatch 2. I'm ready to play something new, and it's going to be a change. It's going to be something different. So yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest changes where I'm kind of going, well, how's that going to work? And is it going to work well? Am I going to enjoy it? Is everyone else going to enjoy it? Is Aura Fury going to keep on loving it? Because Overwatch has definitely been a very popular game for us for quite some time now.
Mhm.
A lot of people playing that, so I'm hoping that that's going to draw lots of people in to start playing that again. So hopefully they like the 5v5 too.
Yeah, I think it'll be, when it comes to people, I think it'll be easier to generate in server content with Overwatch now that there's 5v5. I think it's just like something that we were doing semi-frequently. It was those Overwatch nights, right? And we would, separate into calls with like sometimes just like some weird number of groups. We'd have like a 6-stack and a 3-stack, whatever. And it was fine. I think it was, especially when you found the group that you more gravitated towards, or if you just like took a shot in the dark and was just like, I'm gonna just meet these new people. And then you learn that those people are fun to play with. And then you meet a lot of people in like a smaller group, and then graduate to one of the larger 6-stacks later on where you feel more comfortable around certain people. I think that'll be easier to normalize with 5v5. And hopefully that translates to the actual game as well outside the server. But I think 5v5 will make it so more people are accessing the game at a quicker and more efficient rate. I think what I've been seeing, obviously, it's inflated because there's so many people playing right now, but the queue times look really manageable. It looks like the 5 stacks are actually playing against other 5 stacks of similar MMR, which is something that we've had really bad issues with in like the current Overwatch 1 build, is that it wants to queue you up against a full stack again. So in Overwatch 1, it'd be 6. And there's just so few of them that like sometimes you play against a 6 stack that's just like significantly worse than you, or the opposite. You're significantly worse than the other team. And they're like, well, it's kind of the best we had with the people we had on hand. But right now, with the amount of people playing Overwatch 2, it looks like if you queue up with a 5 stack, you're going to queue up into another 5 stack. It's going to give you a close game, and you're not going to feel deflated at the end of it because it's like, oh, we were going to win that no matter what. That team was nothing. Or the opposite of like, we literally couldn't do anything because their DPS players clicking our heads in spawn, or their tanks are just suppressing us so much, or their healers just aren't dying and stuff like that. It's very frustrating where we are now. And I think with the faster queue times and the less variable MMRs per team or for like a solo queue, hopefully if it like, obviously I don't think we're going to keep these numbers forever, but with the amount of people playing, even if it was the same, it's more likely that the MMR distribution is going to be better with less people in lobby at the same time with 5v5 rather than 6v6, cutting down 2 people. So hopefully that makes that experience that I think a lot of people are struggling with in Overwatch 1, that like after a game, you don't even feel relief or like excitement anymore. You're just like, okay, next one. And you just keep going until you're just burnt out. And I think a lot of people, especially over these past 2 years with almost no updates, it's just been even more so. Because like at least before that, you could get excited for a new hero or a new map or something. But right now it's just been like, I hope I like playing Echo today. I hope it's more fun than yesterday. And it's not, or you're a one trick like me, and I just play ball every day. And the minute ball becomes not fun, So like, yeah, it's just I think that a lot of that will be mitigated in Overwatch 2. Hopefully. I like the optimist in me is trying to repeat that in my head as much as possible.
There was one
And
benefit of the repeated 6v6 that we'd get, where you'd get put up against the same people over and over again. Every so often you'd get some matches where it wasn't just, being run over and over on one side. And we ended up meeting people because of that. So you'd actually get a chance to start chatting and throwing stuff and kind of bantering with each other. And we've brought people into the community that we play with still today. Scruffy is actually one of those players that we got teamed up against their team. We played them like 4 or 5 times in a row and then invited them all over. And a lot of them came into Aura Fury. And there's been some other people that have joined in like that too. So that was pretty cool. But of course, generally speaking, that's not the
That's not par
the
for the course.
experience that we get.
No.
the obviously meeting people has been a really great part of the game. I've vicariously met both of you through this game. I've met Easton through this game. I've met a lot of people through this game. So I hope that continues for people in Overwatch 2. I hope everyone's as lucky as I've been. What I am skeptical and a little bit scared of, I don't know if anybody's seen, but the fact, when you press tab in current Overwatch build, you see the names of the enemy players, what they're playing after 15 seconds of the game being started, what your teammates playing, and then the ult charge of your teammates, right? They've now foregone that, which I think was like from launch, they mentioned that was intentional. They're like, we don't want to show stats because we don't want people to we don't want teams to cannibalize themselves, right? We don't want to be like, oh, I'm top fragging because I have the most eliminations, the most kills, whatever. We want it to be more vague with this medal system and then just like seeing who's playing what. And I think that obviously that has its fair share of problems, but I also think the new solution has its fair share of problems, which is like you can target people on your team or whatever, if it's on the other team, for toxicity by like having the raw data in front of you of how well or not well they're doing. And I'm scared to see as the game quiets down, because I think right now it's going to be at the most pleasant experience to play the game because everyone's just excited and feeding off that energy. But as the game dies down and updates start to come out less frequently and the game is like out and it's more solid, I'm worried that it's going to turn into a lot of what Call of Duty is, which is just like finger pointing of like, oh, you're at the bottom of the lobby. Maybe you should uninstall. And you don't want to, for the longevity of a game, that type of dialogue is bad. And I don't think Overwatch is plagued by that to that degree. I think it's plagued by plenty of other stuff. And I don't know if those things are going to be mitigated in Overwatch 2. So I'm very wary about the idea of another thing being piled on top of all the reasons that people might want to not pick up Overwatch for the day. And the minute that starts happening, of where like, oh, maybe this isn't the game for me, the weaker our player base becomes. Not with like skill level per se, but mainly just like the diversity that everyone enjoys about Overwatch. It's such a diverse pool of people that play the game that immediately that life gets sucked out of the game when people that perpetuate toxicity get their hands on something like the leaderboard stat that's being put up. So I'm worried about that. I don't know what everyone's opinions on it is. Obviously, there's going to be upsides to it with being able to track your stats and stuff like that. But I'm first and foremost worried. So I wanted to open that up.
Yeah, I mean, I like it obviously being on a team. It's much easier for us like to like, oh, we have this hero and they're not doing that like very well against the comp that we're playing against. We can like all see that collectively and be like, all right, what do we need to change to get that damage number up or to get the deaths lower? I do think in ladder it's going to be very problematic because the majority of Overwatch players are super burnt out with the game, and I think that will create toxicity. And I think maybe they need to relook that because, yeah, I think it could be pretty unpleasant for some players because like already people like Overwatch 1, like the first year it came out, people were like, dude, I have gold medals, and this guy's like, dude, no, you don't. I have gold medals. You're bad. Uninstall. And it's like now they can just literally see that and be like, no, you're lying. You're bad. So yeah, I don't know. I like it for some things and I dislike it for other things.
Yeah, I'm also going to fall into the mixed category on that. So, I mean, some of the players that we have played with in the community, they'll go and they'll look at the stats in like somebody's profile, and it's immediate intimidation for them. They're like, oh, this person's like a Masters player. We're going to lose. There's no way we could play against them. It ends up working as this big demotivator for them. So even so right now where things aren't as open, it's already there to some extent. So I just see it getting a bit worse when we go into Overwatch 2. In that case, it's going to end up being a big demotivator for people. It's going to end up being something that they're like, well, everyone can see what I'm doing now. What if you have a bad day, everybody knows you have a bad day. So that's rough. But at the same time, as what Easton was saying, if you're actually running as a team and you're playing competitive and you can see all this, maybe the person that's having the issues right now isn't necessarily seeing that, and the whole team can go, hey, this needs to change, we need to fix this, and it could be something that's snapped and fixed a lot quicker with that information right in front of your face.
I don't think I have an opinion on it yet because I know how often I hit tab more for the alt tracking and more for character dispersity to see if somebody's changed or switched off onto something, and maybe I didn't catch it in the bottom corner, when things pop up in the chat thing. So for me, tab is a very passive thing for me. I don't sit and go through it and try to track, figure out what everybody's what their scores are and stuff. So if I pull it up and the first thing I'm seeing is what everybody's kill scores are and stuff, I'm gonna be like, yeah, but when did they change character? How soon is their alt going to be here? Like, I don't know. I'm torn on that one because I know what I'm hitting tab to check on, and it's not that. I'm not checking to see who has the highest scores and who's not doing the best healing and stuff. I'm mostly, if I'm looking at scores and stuff, I'm looking at my own and seeing if I feel like I'm doing good enough. I don't want to see everybody else's and then just be like, well, at least I'm not healing as bad as that person. You don't want those. You don't want that kind of stuff. You actually want to look at that stuff to make a measure for yourself, not for the rest of your team. And when you have a full competitive team, you don't need that anyway because you're communicating. You're supposed to be communicating anyway. If you're pulling up tab and going, hey, yo, why are you dead again? It's like, no, you're supposed to be communicating that within the game. If you're hitting tab to do that, your team's not rolling. So I don't know. The tab thing sounds like it must be something new they're trying, but I don't know if it's going to be a good or a bad thing. And I know what I use it for, and that's not what I use it for. And that kind of sucks because that means I'm gonna have to retrain myself for when I pull up tab to see what I'm looking for.
It has all the old information. It's just it's not the bulk of what you're seeing. It's tied up with all this other clutter. So I still think that you are gonna have to retrain yourself. Yeah, it's exactly the face you made is exactly how I feel. It's like, okay, I have to look past all this BS just to see the thing I care about, which is exactly what you mentioned. It's just does my team have their ult, and did someone change characters without either verbalizing it or I missed a cue on the bottom of my screen, right? So I feel the same way. Hopefully they tweak it a little bit because I think seeing more numbers for me is always something I want. I want to be able to have a good barometer of where I'm at against my peers, even if it's just me seeing how the other tank is doing, right? That's fine with me too. What I dislike is the finger pointing within team. It's like team cannibalization, like I mentioned before. So hopefully there's a way that either we as a community can settle down, which I don't want to put my eggs in that basket, or the developers can do something about it. But on to something maybe potentially more exciting. I don't want to get into every single character because we're going to be here forever. And I think that's more interesting when it comes to like YouTube videos and like, the big Overwatch people are doing, which is just like, what are the new abilities of everybody, right? And we can talk about stuff if people are more interested in a specific aspect of that, sure. What I am most interested in from watching content now is what do we think the game is going to look like on the latter end of this beta, right? Because right before this beta, the meta, I should go even step further back. The meta at the end of Overwatch League was like 6-man and like Eastern style ball comps, right? So like the ball, Brig, Sombra, Tracer, Zen, and Diva, right? Like that extremely high damage output, fast-paced comp centered around a Zen getting Discord, being protected by the Brig, and then the Sombra disabling the tanks and Ball and Tracer going in, right? And then the 6-man of just throw your Monkey, Reaper, Sombra, Diva, Moira, Lucio at a wall and hope it breaks, right? Two very different styles, but that was the metas coming out at the end of it. Overwatch League ended. Everyone is running around like chickens with their heads cut off because we've been in a 7-month off season. No one knows what the heck's happening. We don't know what's good anymore because the pros aren't telling us. So the meta has been shot wide open. And we're going into Overwatch 2, where all the ideologies of what a team comp is going to be fundamentally different because we're rocking with 5 characters and the massive reworks that have happened to each class of character, let alone individual characters. So I'm interested to hear from each of you what you think the prominent comp is going to be coming out of this. And it doesn't necessarily need to be like Ana, Lucio, with like specific characters. Just what do you think the trend of what comps are going to want to do, right? So like, do you think Brawl is more of what people are going to go to now that Orisa is more of a Brawl character? Doom kind of works as that hybrid between a Brawl and a dive. Ryan is like the de facto Brawl from the Overwatch 1 going into this game, not very different. Zarya even has that kind of potential. I think even Sigma can have like, since he's one of the better shield users now, he's going to be also usable in Brawl, and he's like crazy high damage output. So I think that really dissuades people from going into the team comp, which is a lot of what the Brawl tank wants to do. And then there's like the dive characters, like I said, Doomfist, and of course like Ball, Diva, Winston, all going to be super viable. And then like I think Bunker's going to be the comp, in my opinion, that's going to be the hardest to replicate from Overwatch 1 without Orisa there, because Orisa's just an entirely new hero. I think she could still be a bunker-ish tank, but without a shield, it's hard. So you're looking more into that Sigma, maybe even Zarya and Diva and Rhine, more into that category as well. Or do you think that there's a new comp that I haven't even mentioned that's going to be the front runner at the end of this, like a Hog comp? I haven't mentioned Hog at all because from what I've seen in the beta, he's like just kind of gets farmed. Just kind of just doesn't really work with the new build of the game as much without another tank to do a lot of that tanking role while he would go off and flank. Now he's just flanking and dying for it. But maybe with proper team play, maybe like a Zen and an Ana and a couple of high DPS output characters, he can get bolstered up to start that damage with a hook even faster and just confirm kills left and right. So we can cut back to me on the tail end of it, but if we want to go around starting with Easton, where do you feel like at the end of this beta you see the game composition wise more leaning towards? And if you don't even have a vague clue, what would you like ideally for how you play the game? Where would you be like, oh, I'd be sick if this type of this type of lineup was the meta or one of the more popular comps?
So I'll start with what I hope. So since it's 5v5, I really hope it's not going to be a free for all. I hope it's not going to be like, oh, everybody's like a team deathmatch, basically. I hope people aren't just chasing like other supports or DPS around the map. I hope it's going to be more team focused. So like a really coordinated dive with like Monkey or Ball, because those are going to be really strong dive heroes now that there's not an off tank to defend them, in my opinion. And I really hope that is going to be strong. What I think is going to be the most strong is like some kind of brawly Orisa, because Orisa I think is going to be strong on Brawl because she has range now, or she has more range, I guess. She has more range options. She has more CC options. She has a push that she can push enemies around. I think it's just going to be straight up classic quick play. Like everybody just go nuts. Just run into their team, get kills if you can. If you can't, run back at them once everybody's respawned. And that's probably my least favorite way to play. Obviously, I'm on a team. That's probably why. I like things to be coordinated, especially if you're down a teammate. I don't want to feel like I'm more supposed to like carry a fight by myself. I'd rather work more with my teammates since we're down one from the previous game. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I do think Orisa's going to be really good, and I do think it's just going to be, at least until the game gets more settled, as you said, just kind of a team deathmatchy like brawl style of gameplay.
My fear kind of coming into it at the beginning, and I'm hoping the whole beta phase is probably going to work a lot of this out. But historically, in like Overwatch 1, whenever we have new characters introduced, or there's a really big change that comes in characters, we end up with like a very overpowered character, and then every single match, there they are. You have that same player over and over and over again. So I'm hoping through the beta season that they'll work a lot of that stuff out. I'm sure it's almost guaranteed they're going to have some overpowered characters coming in, and that's going to end up basically forming what becomes some of the initial metas. And I think that's going to end up dictating a lot too on whether we end up getting to play brawl or dive or whatever, what characters end up being all that balanced or not. So I'm hoping that it does end up working as Easton's hoping to where it's more of working as a team, because that's why we play Overwatch. We play Overwatch for that team aspect. If we want to play more of the free for all and stuff, I mean that's go over to Halo and whatnot. I mean, yeah, they've got some team stuff there, but we're all shooting the same gun basically. So it doesn't have quite the same feel at Overwatch at all, or the teamwork aspect that we see. But I am looking forward to see what happens. I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen with the comps myself, where they're going to go from it. I haven't gone through and kind of done the research and all the stats and stuff on all these different characters yet. And I'm looking forward to actually when I get to play the beta and I actually get to see that and kind of get my hands on everything to get to see what it feels like. And then at that point, I could probably give you more of an idea what I think the comp's going to end up being. But looking forward to seeing what happens.
I guess I'm sitting in the middle right now because as a tank main, seeing that 90% of this game has reworked the tank position completely has actually shifted more of the focus onto, okay, are you confident enough to be the only tank on your team now? And I was worried about that. I was worried about that when they announced that, a year ago, when they said that they were removing a tank of all things. Because as a tank, my favorite thing to do was, combo with other tanks to really find the synergy between me and another tank. Because as a Sigma main, Sigma's not fantastic by himself. There's far better choices in the system, but I liked comboing with other tanks with him in the meta. So for the new one, if they're going to make it so that one tank has to basically make all the decisions now, that's actually a lot more stress for your tank. Now, I have seen the numbers. I've gotten to see some of the reworks on health and shielding and abilities, the damage per second that some of the tanks can do now. And that looks like it's a decent balanced rework for there only being one tank now. The one tank is going to be ridiculously, survivable, basically. You're going to have survivability as a tank now, whereas, normally right now, you don't have a ton of survivability. If you're the only tank on your team and there's nobody supporting you, you're not going to make it long on the front line. But with Overwatch 2, the numbers are much better. Like I think Ryan is sitting on like 1,000 health or something like that. It's something really ridiculous. So they're definitely trying to shift the tank role to being almost like the leader of the team comps now. It's people are going to have to pick their tank and then build their comp around it, because they're going to have to make sure that tank can continue carrying out its role, because it's going to be the only one. As soon as you lose your tank, the other team keeps its tank and it's going to roll over because it's an extremely overpowered position now. And what I think is kind of funny, because we were all saying that when they removed a tank, that a lot of people were going to be like, oh no, half of the people that play tank are no longer going to be able to play tank now, because you just reduce it from 6 to 5. Now there's half of these people can't play tank anymore because it just basically balanced out. And now I'm looking at it going, people are going to probably want to play tank now, they're going to make that position such a major influence now that more people are going to want to take up tank. And they've gone and done the worst thing by reducing how many tanks are in the team comps now with the 5 instead of 6. So they should have, it feels like that's what should have been done in the first place, was instead of reducing it to 5v5, buff the tanks. Make the tank position a fun position to play, because now in Overwatch 2, it absolutely looks like it's going to be a fun position to play with all the new abilities and the ridiculous survivability. I'm loving Orissa's rework. She looks like an absolute blast to play. Some of the other tanks still, they pretty much stayed par for the course. Sigma didn't change hardly at all. So that'll be an easy segue for me to just get in there going, okay, I'm going to lead with Sigma and we'll see where it goes from there. But some of the other tanks, I'm kind of impressed with how much more you get to do now as a tank. Most of the time, most of the metas right now are just hold shield, hold W, and go forward. And there's not much thinking power for that. You're counting on the rest of your team to support you. Now the tank is going to have a way more active role and is going to have a kit to support it. And we've reduced it from 6 to 5. So now there's going to be more people fighting to be in the tank position, when that was the problem with Overwatch, is that we couldn't get enough people to want to play tank. I think they gave us the answer we wanted, but then did like the double whammy and took away one of those roles and said, okay, we'll make tank fun. Now you guys all have to fight for 1 position instead of 2. And that's kind of sucking in for me, because now I don't even know if I'd be confident as the only tank on a team now. I liked it when I'm 1 of 2, but as a solo tank, that actually looks kind of scary to me. I might pass it off to somebody else.
You're still on a team though, and then you're going to come in feeling good on Sigma, just like you did before. And I'll be right there behind you, healing you to keep you alive the whole time, just like normal. So
and running like a chicken with my head cut off, because I'm the only tank and I have no other tank to support me.
yeah, it's a little bit of warm up. You'll be fine. You'll be owning the night again.
But that's what I'm looking at. So I don't have much to say on the competitive aspect of it. I'm just looking at from the casual fun play side of it. And I think they went and done what they should have done with the first Overwatch, and then made it a fun position and made it so that less people can do it now.
Yeah, I think that exclusivity is gonna not be. I think the issue that's going to come with the exclusivity aspect of it is a lot of what you said, obviously, of like, more people are going to want to play tank, and there's only going to be 1 tank position. I also think that what's going to come with that is that these tanks are like, fun, right? And of course it's subjective, but a lot of the tank changes are more interaction based and less sitting around, especially like Orisa is like a great example of like, Orisa was a very low interaction tank that could do a lot, which was like very, very good, especially from a team play aspect. The higher you go in competitive, the more value you get out of Orisa, while also her skill like floor is also very high, because all you have to do is exist 90% of the time and just hold an angle. So she's like a very good character, what she did. Now there's a lot of ebb and flow where she can be absolutely trash if she doesn't land her abilities versus running a game over. So I think that is a good barometer for fun. And I think that, like you said, they put a lot of abilities in that would have made tanks more fun if there was 2 tanks within a system, and would have shook the meta up. Like Orisa Sigma would not be a meta as double shield anymore if Orisa was the way she is in Overwatch 2 and Overwatch 1. It literally wouldn't work because there's not even 2 barriers within that comp. So if you wanted to play double barrier, you'd probably play Sigma Rhine, which completely changes what that comp does. The point of that comp is the range damage. Rhine can't even do that in Overwatch 1. So then you're like, okay, who pairs well with Sigma and range damage? And then you're like, Hog, who also doesn't have a shield. So it just completely blows that comp out of the water, which is what a lot of people consider an unfun comp. So you do solve a problem by creating a new one in the system that you're talking about. What I am excited for with the solo tank, obviously, is, I consider myself a pretty adaptable tank. I like to play every tank. There isn't really one that I'm like, oh, dude, like even within the ones that I'm less favorable towards, like the brawl tanks, really. I still have fun with them. I think the new Zarya especially looks really fun to me, because I've always think that she's had a problem of just not having enough uptime in a fight if the other team's coordinated enough. But with 2 bubbles that you can use however you want, I think that leaves a lot of room for you to express yourself on Zarya, because now 2 Zaryas won't play the same, right? Like you could have me on Zarya. I'm like, I consider myself the asset. I'm going to bubble myself as actively as possible. Then you have like the team-based Zarya of like, my DPS players is going to be carrying this fight. I'm going to save my bubbles for that DPS player and maybe a support pocket for that character, right? And it lets the expression of the Zarya player go a little bit further than what was in Overwatch 1. And I think that you're really going to be able to show who you are as a tank without a second tank there, because the difference between a good tank line and a bad tank line is going to be even more stark than it was in Overwatch 1, which excites me as a person who likes to have the MTD, right? I like to be that person. But I think the average player that wants to play every role equally, which I would say is like the norm for Overwatch. It's just like they have a favorite, but like a DPS player will still want to play certain tanks like Roadhog and Sigma and Wrecking Ball and Monkey, the more aggressive tanks, or even Reinhardt. And then it would be like fine on support with like Ana and Bap and Zen and that kind of those type of characters are going to be less incentivized to hit the flex button and more so just the DPS and support button than ever before. Because I think, like you said, it's going to be an intimidating role to want to queue into, because not only are you going to have to like be intimate with a good variety of the tanks, like at least 3 or 4, you're also going to have to be adept at controlling a fight on your own, essentially. Because for what it looks like, supports are very underpowered as compared to Overwatch 1. They can't get a lot done back there. And I think when you come from Overwatch 1, where like BAP like spits on you and you have full health and you're just like, woohoo, I can do whatever I want. And then BAP gets ult in 2 seconds. Now with these like longer time to ult on supports, because you don't have 2 tanks to just pocket anymore, you're going to find yourself without a paddle in a lot of situations if you're not comfortable within your role on your own in that more deathmatch style that we're scared of. And I think a lot of people are just going to be like, I just don't even want to go through the headache. So you're either going to be one of 2 things. One, you're a casual player that's just not going to be incentivized to play tank, or you're a casual player that was playing tank in Overwatch 1 like yourself, that are now like, maybe I should just change roles because I don't want to deal with the stress of being a solo tank, because the minute I'm not firing on all cylinders, it isn't even up to my team anymore if we win, because like you said, when the one tank is gone and the other team has it, now they're just down a role. And that's just not how the game is going to operate. You can't just be without your tank. It's going to be a lot more forgiving on support and DPS, and I think more people are going to be drawn to that. I think especially support. I think a lot of tank mains are going to want to opt for the support role, specifically like main support, traditional main support characters like Brig and Lucio and stuff like that, that still have a lot of the tank skill set of just being in the right position and using your abilities at the right time, and less more of the DPS skill set of just hitting skill shots all the time. And I mean, I have a lot of fun with main support. I obviously with Brig nerf, I'm a little bit spooked because I love Brig the way she is now. Don't touch her, but it happened. So, but yeah, I think I think you're entirely right in your assessment of that, and I'm cautious about it, but at the same time, I like being the person to scare people off of tanks. So I think I would enjoy running over as many people as I can in the beta and just being like, I'm the only tank around here. Bam. So
Give me all the power.
exactly. And I
Let me
think
run the show.
I think Ball's going to be a really good character in this new game. And I think with the added 100 health, being at 700 is going to be awesome. Max adaptive barriers back, with instead of 70, it's going to be 100 per person now. So with 5 people to potentially proc that, that's 1200 health. That's Winston. That's more than Winston ult. And that's just me popping my E ability. I'm ready for Overwatch 2 if that's what I get to do on Ball. Like, I just don't die. I don't even need a healer at that point. Like, if I get a mega health pack, that's a third of my health. That's crazy. That full heals 90% of the cast. I'm ready. I'm ready to be Ball in this new game. I'm so ready. But I think like you said, with characters like Sigma that essentially received no reworks that really benefited Sigma, just kind of like lateral movement, and especially with all these tanks that are getting super powered, I think the perspective of like your Sigma players and your Diva players and Roadhog players, it doesn't look good, that transition to the new game, especially when those tanks are so good at being the complement to another tank. Sigma and Diva look great alongside a main tank, specifically like Orisa for Sigma or Winston for Diva. And then you're just without that. Now you're just like, okay, I'm just going to pocket them like I would another tank and try to synergize with my team, like specific supports, maybe like Brig for Sigma, or maybe just like a Bastion now that he's mobile. But then you're like, why am I doing that instead of just playing Rhine or whatever, or for Diva, maybe like Monkey. So I don't know. I think the Sigma and Divas and Roadhogs and maybe even Zaryas of the world are going to struggle in the new game, because it looks like they kind of got left out of the party invite when it comes to all the new cool tank changes. So, But they brought Diva's old defense matrix time back with the 4-second uptime. So maybe she'll be okay. Because that's kind of crazy. That's 4 seconds of someone taking 0 projectile damage. So
I feel like they were so worried about reworking the tanks that really just because all Ryan ever really is just a giant shield. He's not really utilized well in any other type of combat, which is why Brawl is his area. He's designed to get you up and close with your enemies, and then once that shield goes down, murk everybody. So I feel like they were trying so hard to try to make it so that most of these tanks could be flexed in like whether they're all Brawl or have some sort of, balance of distance and mid-range, that they were so worried about with fixing 2 of the tanks that they forgot the other tanks. That they just went, well, you know what, the Reinhardt just needs so much that we're just going to ignore, like Sigma literally got nothing. Winston got like a tweak it's a nice tweak, don't get me wrong, but the rest of Monkey's kit is still the same. That didn't really change at all. And then for Reinhardt, I'm sitting here watching 2 fire strikes go back to back because he's given 2 of those now. I'm watching his health be like even more so ridiculous. They only shrank his shield by, I think, 200 health. So he still has the best shield out of all of the tanks. So it just feels like they were so worried about trying to bring him up to the rest of the tanks that they ended up leaving a lot of the other tanks behind in the meantime.
yeah, I think you're entirely right. I think Orisa and Doom are really the only 2 that got that same level of love, but that's entirely because they needed a whole rework on their kit. I think Winston's going to be okay. I think Ball is just he's just going to benefit from 5v5 because his job just became way easier because the main thing that stopped Ball was Diva. And now if you pick Diva, then you just don't have a tank that's going to combat Ball in the back line for your team. You just have your Diva sitting in the back, just kind of just hoping that she can stop Ball, which Ball does cleave damage. So like her defense matrix doesn't even really stop him. He can still roll through the team. So I think, some tanks are going to benefit from it. I think Sigma is like I said, just like gets kind of a closet nerf by the fact that there's another less tank more so than anything. And then I think the nerf of supports, or not nerf, but the fact that supports aren't doing as well in the new game are not going to benefit a lot of certain tanks as well, especially the ones that didn't get upgraded. I think a couple of the changes were really cool, like the fact that Zarya's bubbles, the cooldown starts when you press the button to bubble someone rather than when the bubble bursts. I think that's a really good quality of life change. I think obviously the Reinhardt being able to cancel pin, that just should have existed in the first place. I think you should be able to cancel long movement abilities like that. That's kind of crazy. Winston having a poke, great. I think I think that's a really good quality of life change. I think also Winston's bubble getting bigger. Now it's like 900 health. That's crazy. That's cool. The adaptive barrier buff, good. Diva getting her buff, cool. But yeah, like literally Sigma Roadhog, not touched. I think Sigma's barrier actually went down. I think that's the only thing that happened to poor Sigma is that his barrier health, I'm pretty sure, went down like 100 or maybe even more.
I actually don't remember. The only thing that I thought was cool with Winston is his is on a timer now.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a cooldown.
You can
timer
see
before
where, that's a really good point. Also, I think, oh, no, okay. What I think it is, I don't think Sigma's shield health went down. I think the time in which his barrier charges, like that little bottom feed of where you see your shield health is at when it's not up, I think that charges slower. I think that's what it is. I think that's what I think it's instead of like 100 shields, 140 shields per second, it's just a raw 100 now. So you get your shield back to full less, which in a game with less tanks sounds worse. It sounds like even worse than if it was just that in Overwatch 1, because now that's the only shield and more DPS players are shooting at it without any sort of other tanking.
That gets balanced if the recall and deploy are shortened. Because that's the big thing right now is that when you recall that shield, you're on a 2-second cooldown, and that 2 seconds can actually feel like a millennia when you're in the heat of battle sometimes. So I'm really hoping that they balance that out with faster retract and deploy with that. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I just want to be able to make sure I can manage that on my choice rather than just be like, oh, now I got 2 more seconds. There goes the shield.
Especially with how fast paced this new game is going to be in comparison. I think you're just going to need to have that shield up and down, left and right. So yeah, I think you're right. But on a less competitive team comp basis, I guess I'll give I think like what Ethan said, I think Dive's going to be the meta. I think Ana is looking really, really good, which has been a while since she's like dominated a meta. I think right now she's only played to Nano Winston, which is like a sorry sight to see her from what I remember old Ana used to be when she first came out. Everybody just was obsessed with that character. And then I think Lucio is going to be pretty good to pair with her. I think double flex support looks kind of good too with Ana Zen, especially with more aggro comps. I think even Lucio Zen could be run, but yeah, just something that can like enable a dive with nano boost, like with Ball or Winston or Doom. And then like Sojourn looks crazy good. Echo looks heavily nerfed, but still really good. Tracer, Sombra looks really good. Tracer looks pretty good. I think even Soldier, I think Soldier is right now the most played DPS player in the beta. So like, but then that's what happened in the first beta too. Is like people like, oh, I know Soldier, he shoots gun, and you're like, yeah, he does. So like, yeah, people are gonna pick up that character. So I take it with a grain of salt, but still, he looks pretty good without another tank to stop his damage. But so yeah, dive is where I'm landing. But an interesting question that I want to ask you all from the footage you've seen: 2CP's gone. My heart goes out. That's my favorite game mode. So big sad for me. But I think this is something I've talked about with people that played the game, specifically like Mikey. Like he loves push. He thinks push is a really fun game mode. It reminds me a lot of Paladins. I think Paladins has a similar game mode. And so like there is like I have some exposure to that type of game mode. I'm not that enthralled with it. Also, I don't hate it. Like I do not like control. I think control is the game mode that needed to go because you just get it just felt like it's just so one-sided once someone gets the point for the first time. So I just don't think that's really engaging. I think push does mitigate that. I think you can still roll pretty hard with like if you just push people back into a part of the map that's like really disadvantageous for them and just hold that position because you don't need a full push. All you need to do is have a favorable push than what they had. So if you just hold a choke forever and just never let them touch it because your positional advantage is so great, I think that's potentially even worse than what 2CP had. But I am interested to hear your thoughts on, do you think push is a good addition? Do you think it's great that 2CP is gone? Do you think it's kind of a lateral movement of like, oh, I liked 2CP, so seeing it gone is like, but I at least still think push is fun. So I want to hear everyone's thoughts on it.
So I was neutral on 2CP. I know a lot of people hated it. I know some people liked it, but it was okay. I wasn't like anywhere in those two. But my favorite mode is escort. So I think having that aspect of like the control point moves where you're going to be playing around is going to move as the game goes on. That's my favorite part. I think that's the most fun I have in Overwatch is when I need to think on the fly. I need to set up a team and like a team fight in different spots. So it's not the same game every time. You know, like I know some people like in 2CP, oh, I'm just going to hold this sniper spot if I play Widow. I'm just going to play this spot every time. And I know it gets stale to me. So I think I haven't played it yet, obviously, but I think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be fun. I think team games are most fun when you need to adapt like that, and they're less fun when it's just a hard objective that strategies can just kind of overtake. Like Symmetra on some 2CP maps was pretty oppressive, or just the TP strat on like a lot of them, like Hanamura. I think we're going to see less of that with push, and I think adaptability and variety is good for a team-based game like Overwatch.
I'm looking forward to seeing push. I was kind of neutral on 2CP myself too. I wasn't necessarily bothered by it. In fact, like doing the semester strats stuff like that, that was kind of interesting to me. Even though it was something that was kind of repetitive, it's kind of interesting how many times we would just completely get obliterated when we tried that stuff, or when they would try it on us. We would obliterate them, the stuff that they think that actually works all the time. And Hanamura was actually a map that I really enjoyed playing too, even though it was like that. So even when they were 2CP, they're still enjoyable maps for me. But I'm right there with pushing a payload and things like that. I like the movement. I like the changes. I like dancing around that payload and things like that. So it's looking like fun for me.
I'm kind of on the same thing with push because that's the reason why I think King's Row is one of the most popular maps for Overwatch right now. I don't think I've met anybody that openly doesn't like King's Row. So for me, I think the push is just that's got to stay either way. I'm very happy with it. But or escort, whatever the name is supposed to be for. I know it's the same idea though. I found it funny that you didn't like control because that's Lee Jong, and I absolutely love Lee Jong. But the 2CP thing, again, I was not really mad or sad about hearing that it's going to be gone now. There were some people that were just cheering, and I'd be like, well, then that means, like Hanamura. I do absolutely love Hanamura, but that there was plenty of other maps too that were enjoyable. And to me, the map layout was more important than whether it was a control map or if it was a 2CP. The map layout was more important, which is why everybody hated Paris. Because Paris's map layout is trash. It doesn't matter if it was a control section or a 2CP. It just worked out that it was 2CP, and so it's gone and people can cheer. It's not because it was 2CP, it was because it was Paris. So I think the map is way more important than what the game mode is, because once you learn the maps, the game mode can just, it can either enhance it or it could make it worse, but the map is way more important than the mode. So I'm okay with it being gone. I would have been okay if they'd found a way to keep it in there or even alter it. So maybe that there was maybe a 3 control point on it. That might have been kind of cool, or find a way to make it, I don't know, more fun to brawl on rather than just trying to push a payload all the way to the end of a racetrack type thing. Cause it always feels like it's like a racetrack. You're just trying to get it all the way to the end, and it's a race to whoever can rush to it next and sneak it in next. Cause sometimes your best plays are even in those kinds of games too, where a payload sitting there being defended, and then all of a sudden a Reaper shadow steps behind it and walks it in, and the rest of the team doesn't even realize what's going on. The next thing you know, you have a C9 victory. And that's why some of those were just so fun to watch, is because there had to be some strategy involved in that. And with 2CP, kind of the same thing could happen, where somebody could sneak in, upset the meta, and do something kind of different. So to me, those different maps and different strategies forced you into creative stuff like that. And so removing one's kind of like, I'm heartbroken to hear it's gone, because it's going to kind of eliminate some of my favorite things. Like, because even Temple of Anubis, I absolutely love playing Temple, and I'm heartbroken to hear, because that's a 2CP too, and that means that's gone. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of my favorite strategies and a lot of our favorite movements in our game disappear with it too.
Yeah, we're losing the speed runs on Anubis.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody was fighting to get the fastest speed run on Anubis. That was fun.
Anubis especially is like, it's hard to see it go, because that's literally the first Overwatch map ever created. It's where they did all the alpha testing. It's where they did all the pre-game testing, and I just hate to see it gone. And especially with all the changes that's been through, I think the newest iteration of Anubis is just genuinely super fun. I know our team really likes it. We have like a very good strategy for it. And Volskaya, I think too, is just like, if only for aesthetics. I think the aesthetic of that map is just badass. Just a huge mech hangar in the middle of Russia. That's just like cool guy shit. So like I'm there for it. And I understand that like Hanamura can get kind of like iffy because of the sim strats being super popular there. But I think the lore that came from that map and just how pretty it is, I like it a lot. So I really like that map. And I really hope that they don't just like wipe the map from the codes. I hope they turn it into something cool, like a team deathmatch map or something, or if they just remap it to like you said, if they just change it into maybe a hybrid map where you just keep the first point kind of the same, and then you put a payload involved and you push that into a second point and then generate a third one. I think all the maps would work like that. Like Anubis could go into the tomb that is the last spawn and make a whole room of that. And then Volskaya, the same thing. There's like a huge mech hangar at the end of that. You just open up the mech hangar. There's footage of it in the Sombra intro. Just make that the map. And then, okay, that's those 2 down. And then you just got to make something for Kanazaka Castle for Hanamura and just open up that castle room. Or you start it further back into the city, make the point where you need to capture the first spawn, and then the second turn is the first point, and then the last one's the end. So like, I don't think it'd be too difficult. This is a lot of the same arguments that I think you had with the 5 tank rule that I'm echoing in this scenario, which I'm just like, I just wish that they pushed a little bit harder to make the maps work within the new system, rather than just give up on the idea of just even having 2CP as an option, just like having 2 tank as an option, right? And I really liked the game mode. I do like payload. I kind of echo that sentiment if it's my second favorite. Hybrid is hit or miss for me, because like I think there's some maps that are just like, I just feel like I'm just hitting my head into a wall. Like Blizzard World's just not fun for me. I know I'm going to be the first person to tell you this, but King's Row is just not fun for me. But like Eichenwald, I feel like any comp works on that map. There's parts of the map where like Brawl seems really good, but then you try to run Brawl on second point, you're like, I have to jump up that? That's crazy. No, I'm going to go Winston. So like that, I feel like that is the map within hybrid that is the most change incentivized by the map. than out of any other map. So this like the first point looks like double shield is great too. So it's like I like that map. I think Eichenwald's good. I think control. I don't think the maps are necessarily the issue. I think it's the idea of how the mode works and the fact that it incentivizes. If you get the first point, you essentially get 80% progress for free because of ult cycling. But that's a whole other thing. That maybe that gets mitigated in Overwatch 2 by having less characters with ults, especially tank ults that run over points like that. Because like I want to touch point at 70%. Well, Winston's whole ult tells you you can't. Okay. Well, what if they have a ball instead of a Winston? Well, his ult makes it so if you step on point, you die. Okay, well, we'll just run in one direction. Well, Ryan's Shattered stops that. It's just like every tank ult in the game just runs over control points for the most part. So I maybe with one tank that'll be different, and maybe in push, people will. My expectation of just people finding a really really good part of the map and just always playing there forever, just knowing that that's the strategy, will be more. In my opinion, it sounds like it'd be more oppressive than 2CP, but maybe that's wrong. Maybe people will shatter that idea for me and be like, it doesn't matter. There is no part of the map that's just super advantageous to hold and just never let anybody get there and just chain spawns. Because I feel like sim strats would work even more within push than on like control or 2CP. Because if you have a sim TP coming out of spawn right to where you want to hold advantageously, then literally people are only out of the fight for the spawn timer, which is like 8 seconds. So like that's super maneuverable. So that's what worries me, but hopefully I'm wrong. My experience from Paladins would suggest I'm not, but this is a different game. This isn't made by Hi-Rez. This is Activision Blizzard. They're so great at everything they do. So I'm sure we'll get a great product. But
Before we
enough of
move
my
on, the
pessimism.
only thing I really want to kind of laugh about is I remember hearing way back when Jeff was doing a lot of the big intro videos and stuff and doing a lot of the big presentations for new characters and new models and stuff like that. I remember him very distinctly making the statement that there will be no Overwatch 2. Way back when, like years ago, where he said that won't happen. And he also said that there won't be so many characters. We're not going to become League of Legends. We're not going to have 80 characters and team sets to pick from. And well, here we are, Overwatch 2, and we're all like chomping at the bit ready for it. And I just kind of think, where did this mindset change? Where did this shift come from that, we're never going to turn into what the mainstream is and what's normal and what's the like, what would you even say, what is supposed to happen, not what you want to do, but what the industry expects of you. And
The
I'm kind
industry
of wondering,
standard,
is Overwatch just going with because that's what's expected of the industry, or did they really have a big plan for Overwatch 2 that we just haven't gotten to see the big reveal for it yet?
I echo that sentiment entirely. I think it's very visible, the shift in mentality from original Overwatch to what it is now. And I think obviously Jeff leaving has some sway on that whole thing. And I just wonder, where is this all coming from? What's the exigence of all these decisions? Is it for our benefit as the player base, or like you said, is it just to adhere to industry standards and precedents and stuff? So I'm equally as concerned as you sound.
In the end, they've got to turn a profit. So if that turning to the industry is what's turning them the profit, that's where they're going to chase.
Yeah, absolutely. But got to keep us players invested because that's where the profit. So I'm sure they'll find a way. They're Activision Blizzard. They can market anything. Just put a colorful lady or a big strong guy on it, and we're in. We don't care. Just more. so yeah, I think on a more optimistic note, we can close out the Overwatch 2 beta topics by just talking about how fun it's going to be when the real game comes out and all of these things are squashed and we're just playing with the same group of people that we had when Overwatch 1 came out. Which if some people have moved on and they don't want to touch Overwatch 2, sure, but I think I'm excited to see. I've already started to see just from the beta, just some people that it said Battle.net account has been offline for 3 years, 4 years, 2 years, whatever. They're all back, baby. They're all back. They all came crawling right back. So I've been here waiting with open arms. So I'm excited to see some old faces again, especially with the streaming community. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of people streaming the game right now that we've seen in years. Like it's fun. It's fun to see the personalities back. Hopefully we get it for as long as possible. I'm not expecting the moon, but we do have moon streaming, so maybe I should. But all right, but yeah, I that's what I'm excited. I'm excited to see some old faces. So
And it kind of comes into what I'm excited about too, because I'm excited to see the excitement come back in Overwatch for Aura Fury. To see those really busy Overwatch nights and to where we're pushed into running more than one night again, because those were some good times, and I'm hoping that we can bring a whole bunch of those people that have kind of vanished back, just like you're saying there. Their account hasn't been used in such and such long. Well, there are some voices we haven't heard in voice chat in what feels like eons now.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that it's going to bring those folks back out of the woodwork.
Which hopefully, I think we've mentioned this before, but we're slowly gaining more of a foundation with this. We want to start up some tournaments within the community in lead up to Overwatch 2, mainly probably being on Overwatch 1 for the time being, or maybe if we can get something going with the beta with enough attendance, sure. But I know going into Overwatch 2, it is our goal to set up something within the community to feed off of that hype. So if you all in the community, anyone watching this, are interested in participating in something like that, shoot a message to me, shoot a message to any of us, or just participate in more Overwatch things, and we'll see with the raw numbers of people being involved in it that you all are interested in starting maybe like a weekend tournament or a more like casual regular season type of thing to really go into Overwatch 2 and have some more structured play for you all. So you guys can generate your own teams. You can generate relationships with other people in the servers via this, the camaraderie as well as the competitiveness of playing against one another. Because that's 90% of the people I've met in here, people that I've on Overwatch nights we queue up with, and I just want to either beat them if they're on the other team, if we're doing like an in-house thing, or if we're all playing together. I'm just trying to one up everybody. So I think that's for me what I've had the most fun in the community, and that's what I'm thankful for since coming here. So I want to try to spread that as much as I can, and I know everyone else here probably echoes the same sentiment. So we're gonna do what we can for you all based on what you all are interested in. So keep us in the know, participate as much as you can, and we'll definitely churn out the events for you all. And I think that puts us at the oh so exciting idea of the last topic that I wanted to touch on, which is the another game that's going to be hopefully releasing in Q4, which this company usually delivers when it comes to that. But that's the new Pokemon game, which I know we have a couple people in here who are also very excited for the new Pokemon game, or at least the idea of just a new Pokemon generation. This is Gen 9 at this point. This isn't Legends Arceus Point 2. This isn't Pokemon Diamond and Pearl again. This is Gen 9, right? And I'm not saying those games aren't exciting, the ones I listed off, but what I am saying is I wasn't excited when those games came out. I'm ready for something new. Gen 8 was a lot of fun, and the DLC was fun too, but I'm ready for something new. I'm ready for another drop of 50 to 100 Pokemon. So we can I think a great segue into this for anyone who knows the names of the starters, awesome. But if you don't, you can just describe them, maybe their type or what they look like. But we should go around and say since there's so little information on it, who's everyone's favorite? Who we picking out of the box right now from what we know?
You first, Easton.
Okay, yeah. I think this is the hardest gen for me to decide, actually. None of them like really jump out to me, but I think I like either the crocodile or the duck. Fuecoco or
Fuecoco.
Quaxley.
Fuecoco.
Yeah, Fuecoco.
Fuecoco and Quaxley, baby.
Quaxley. It's one of those probably. I like the cat, but there's been a lot of cats. There was a fire cat, I think 2 gens ago. But I would probably lean towards the crocodile at this point.
Awesome.
I'm a little bit worried with the starters because with every generation, we have the same thing happen over and over and over again. The first 3 are released and we all pick out from the start there. And then we get to the final evolutions and people cry. And I'm kind of worried about that with these 3 as well. That's why I don't like judging based on the first evolutions on any of them, because what's going to end up happening is the one that nobody is thrilled with in the beginning is going to end up being the killer when it gets to the final evolution, because that's what happened to Froakie when it evolved into Greninja. It left Chespin and Fennekin in the dust. It even became, for that generation, it was almost like Lucario level of favoritism. Like it couldn't beat Charizard, but it was competing with like Lucario favorites because it became such a staple that it even got a lot into the like for Smash Brothers. It got into the Pokken tournament game and stuff. So I don't like to judge because it's always the sleeper that always ends up becoming the favorite and taking over everything, which is why I'm not going to say Quaxley is my least favorite. It's currently its design is not popping out to me right now, but I've learned not to underestimate the water evolution line at all. because Oshawott turned into a gorgeous Samurott, and everybody laughed at Oshawott. People laughed at Poplio. I was a huge fan of Primarina. And then, of course, when Froakie came out, people were just kind of like, oh, little bubble frog. And I'm like, Greninja took everything by storm. So I'm going to sit back and see what happens with our cute little water duck. Fuecoco, I could not help it. The damn little fire, like crocodile alligator looking thing is adorable. And it reminds me of the dinosaurs from Bubble Bobble. A lot of people have been making that comparison, that it looks just like them. It's the same like form, the same shape and everything. And even has like the derpy face and smile. So I feel like some inspiration came from that. And I think he's adorable. So if you're going for like the derpy look, he's it. He is there. Like there's nothing going on in that Pokemon's head and everybody's there for it because it's just little fire crocodile that's doing nothing except what he wants to do. And that's cute. For Sprigatito, if I see one more weed cat joke on the internet, I'm going to burn it down. I'm so sick and tired.
They would love that.
It is so annoying. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm excited about a cat evolution as well, but they need to stop. If they start with a cat, it needs to end as a cat. Don't get me wrong. Incineroar was probably a fantastic evolution, but at this point we were sick and tired of watching quadrupedal Pokemon turn into bipedal human-like looking things. We were getting sick of it. And if it's going to start as a four-legged kitty, please keep it as a four-legged cat in its final evolution, please. It is like, if I can only ask of one thing of Pokemon Center or Pokemon Company for Christmas this year, keep Sprigatito on its 4 feet in its final evolution, please.
I have one more thing to add to the list. Pokemon Company. Can we talk here just for a quick moment? The hat on the duck. What happened there? I mean, I can see some references going on a little bit there, but come on, I love my birds. That's what my Pokemon team's almost always. They're always birds, dragons, and things, anything that can fly. But the hat, oh my God, I can't get by the hat right now. But you can fix this. You can fix this to see. You have a second and a third evolution where that hat could just suddenly go poof and be gone, and it can be amazing. And then it can end up being my favorite.
Or the cat could get bigger and you can ruin his day. So yeah, picking out of the 3 right now, I am absolutely loving Fuecoco just because it's cute, but I'm not going to sleep on Quaxley and I'm not going to sleep on Sprigatito. This might be a generation. I might try to seek out all 3 of them and gather those all up and have them at some point, because there's not a starter that I'm disappointed with this time around.
It's almost cheating because I've gone with fire types whenever I played with stuff. So Fuecoco was almost automatically getting it at this point. But I always like to change it up. But I have a hard time starting with grass types, so the cat's kind of out for now. I'm not a huge cat person. They are growing on me. Don't worry, they are growing on me. And this person right here has had a lot of effect on that. But also, crocodile, come on. Dinosaur looking thing, adorable. But like, if that hat disappears, there's hope. There's hope for the duck, because I do like the duck still.
All right. I'll stand by. I'll let you have your talk about his hat. That's fine. That's
Who are
fine.
you picking?
Quaxley every day. I grew up on DuckTales. This duck reminds me of DuckTales.
He really does.
Yeah.
I'm in there. That's Huey, Dewey, or Louie. Whatever 3. I'm gonna play through the game so much. Each one. That's who I am. You're gonna be duck dodging me in queues because I'm gonna be all over that duck. I like it. I'm always water type though. I have been since baby. Squirtle, easy pick. Totodile was the only one where I kind of missed because Cyndaquil is just so cute. So like I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it.
Amazing.
All of Gen 3 is great, so I couldn't I just kind of pick a different one every time. Obviously, like Blaziken just runs over the game, but like so does Mudkip. Mudkip has every move you ever want, and the tree goes so fast. So like I'm in. But Gen 4 is when they started to get that's when I started to only pick water types because like Piplup was just so cute. Oshawott was so cute. Froakie I always thought was cute, but Gekkoga or Greninja was like very strong. It literally was like the second most viable Mon coming out of 6th gen besides Talonflame before the Gale Wings nerf. So it's like
Yeah.
pretty good. And As well as I wanted to mention, you said it didn't beat out Charizard. That year when they did the poll of what's the most popular Pokemon, it did beat out Charizard. Since then, rescinded. Now people are back to like, now that new Pokemon have come out and the hype for Greninja's gone down. Now it's back to like, oh, Charizard's the guy, especially with Dynamax and Gigantamax Charizard. Everyone's like, whoa, Charizard's the coolest. But like, there was a brief period where like the king was dethroned by the small frog. So the frail frog is back at it again. So I'm down for the frail duck. I think you're right. Don't sleep on the water types. I think obviously in this last game, I'm like, I slept on Swarbunny. I was mistaken. That Cinderace ruins the late game. That Pokemon's really good. I picked Sobble and was disappointed by Intellon. I wanted it to just stay a ground frog or maybe turn into I know it was like UK based, so I really wanted it to, it's like Final Evolution to be like a Leoplorodon or like some sort of water dinosaur or like Loch Ness monster type, but it just turned into James Bond with a finger gun. And I'm just like, what? I do like the cape. I'm a sucker for capes. I like Gallade for the same reason. When the Gallade gets the Mega Evolution cape, I'm big into Power Rangers and Sentai and all the other Power Rangers and superhero crossover stuff. So obviously, like, cool, but like, I just couldn't get over how dumb he looked. And then Rillaboom, I'm like, monkeys are cool and funny, cool, but I just never really got down with grass types. They lose to my favorite type, bugs, and we barely beat anything. So I'm like, what are grass types? I don't care about these things. I like Jumpluff, but I like it because it's a flying type. So I don't know. I'm in it for Quaxley. I am a little disappointed to see another water duck. I mean, we just said like Ducklet, right? We already have one of those, and Ducklet's great. We love Ducklet in this house. So like, they better do something cool with his Final Evolution. I hope they get a scarf. I hope they have like the early 1900s like aerial navigator and like pilot scarf with like the goggles and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I hope that's what they do with them. I hope they turn him into just a righteous dude. I have no idea where they're gonna go with that fire type. Right now, it looks like a straight up trash can to me. A cute trash can, but it literally looks like a garbage can, and I don't know what's gonna happen there. Maybe crazy monster giant thing. I don't know. Cat, like you said, if it gets up on 2 legs, count me out. I'm done. I'm done with that whole narrative. Keep it a cat. And stop trying to give it DeviantArt bait, Nintendo. We don't care anymore. We've seen it all. They're gonna do it anyway. So just stop. Just put it down. Take a walk. Think about a cool looking third evolution that's on all 4 legs and enjoy that. We have enough of that. We're fine. I'm
so
excited
close
to see.
They were so close in Sun and Moon though, because Litten and in Torracat were just wonderful.
They kept it on the ground, and
they
then
they kept
then
it
they
on the
turned it
ground.
into Himbo Cat, and we couldn't handle them. But like you said, Primarina was.
Yes.
I thought I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, this is a little much, and then I played with it. I was like, oh, this is a little much. I like this one. And then Decidueye appeals to just a certain demographic of people who are still in the early 2000s, and I appreciate that for them.
I loved my Rowlet.
I'm no shots fired. I like Fallout Boy as much as the next guy, but I'm not trying to have hair flip Archer Owl. I'm not into it really. I think it's a neat design. Also, ghost type on a starter, cool idea. I liked it. I liked all the secondary typings. Dark, Ghost, and Fairy. Those are awesome typings to have as secondary typings. Never really got me though. It's also just the whole, like, it's a bird, make it a flying type. I don't know. It's tried and true, but I don't know. I think, like I said, I've been able to get excited for a lot of the newer starters. Like 8th gen, I was just like, kind of just got forced in a Scalpel squad. I was just like, it's the water guy. I'm just going to pick the water dude. Even 7th gen, I was just like, I'm just going to pick the water guy again. I don't know. 6th gen, I mean, obviously, like, I think frogs are cool. And I was like, got a little bit more excited for them. But even 5th gen, I was just like, okay. It wasn't, since 4th gen, it's really been hard for me to get excited about starters, which is fine because, like, the rest of the Pokemon in those gens have been awesome. Like, some of my favorite Pokemon have come from the later gens that aren't starters. Like, I love Delmise from Gen 7, Ghost Grass, even though I don't like grass and I don't like Decidueye. That Pokemon's cool. It's an anchor. It has 3 stabs with grass ghost and then its ability giving it steel, same type attack bonus. That's crazy. I'm in. And then like the normal dragon Drampa, think he's funny. I like him. And Gen 8 has Ice Cube. I love penguins, and it's got the funny little head that falls off if it gets hit. It's so funny. So like I'm excited for the Pokemon that aren't starters. Obviously, we don't know what they look like yet, but I think the designs are like they're pretty unique. It's not just like, I mean, it is a reptile, but it's not just fire lizard, and it's not like fish and like weird amalgamation of a plant and a animal. It's just, it's cat, trash can, and DuckTales. I can get down with that. That's cool. It looks fan made, and I know some people don't like that. They're like, it looks like some guy drew it on overnight. I'm like, but that's more of what I'm looking for from Pokemon. I'm looking for doopy, dumb first evs, and then the final evs to look cool and enticing and dangerous and scary, and not just, a person that also is a cat or a bunny or a frog. I don't know. I'm more interested in these like really interesting first evolutions. Obviously, cat isn't. You can kind of go anywhere from cat. It's less vague than fire, crocodile, dinosaur, trash can. So, but
Well, way back on like third generation, when they started adding all these new Pokemon, I was joking with my friends and saying, when's it gonna hit the point where we have Charomon and we have the Pokemon that's just like a chair or something like that? Is ninth gen finally gonna be that? Are they finally gonna make it where they get the Charomon added because they've run out of ideas for new designs?
I wonder. I mean, they were plagued by that with like 5th, 6th, and 7th, specifically 5th and 6th. Like they had like ice cream, pair of keys, actual trash. Like,
Don't you hate on my Garbodors?
I've learned to love
They are
all of
total
these
garbage.
Pokemon. Literal Avalugg is a sentient table. That's half of chair. That's the duo is
Oh,
table and
true.
chair. So I'm ready for it.
We've got
The worst part about
Sandcastle now, too.
Charomon is going to be its typing is going to be awesome. It's going to be like Steel Fairy or Ghost something. And we're just going to be like, okay. And we're all going to pick
it's gonna
chair.
be the meta. It's
Yeah. That's what happened with Klefki. We're like, oh, it's a pair of baby keys. But like Swagger wasn't banned yet. And everyone's like, well, we're going to run this because it's just, you can't kill it. And it can barely kill you, so it just stalls the game out. And that was the meta at the time, because they're like, it's either do that or lose to a bird that wants to kill itself, because Talonflame was running over the game. So you're like, okay, we're gonna Swagger it so that it hits itself in confusion and doesn't kill my whole team. Not a bad plan. So like, the game's gonna be weird. The Pokemon that you like are not gonna be as meta maybe as you want them to, and the Pokemon that you think are ridiculous are gonna be at the top of the meta. That's just how we've learned to interpret the game at this point. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Maybe we can get a starter that actually is like very, very viable. Because like the last time a starter has run over the game, this was like Greninja in 6th gen. And then before that, it was like Blaziken, right? It only happens every so often. Even Charizard, like when a game came out, sure. But since then, there's just like Mons that do what Charizard does better nowadays. So like it's still a good Pokemon. Don't get me wrong. But like, are you going to run in 6th gen? Are you going to run Charizard over Talonflame? They're the same typing? No, you're going to Talonflame because it's fast as heck and blows up the game. So I want a Pokemon, at least one of them, to just be like an actual viable Mon on the level that Greninja was, and Blaziken. Maybe not as good as Blaziken because that guy's still kind of crazy, but like really, really good. Because the last gen, like if you use Rillaboom online, you're going to get run over. And the same thing goes for like Inteleon a little bit. Cinderace is like okay, but like, why are you running Cinderace over Darmanitan? Why are you running Cinderace over half these other fire types that just run over the game? So I want there to be a starter Pokemon that is a mainstay in some sort of strategy. Anything. Stall, I don't care. Sweeping, sure.
I wish they'd start releasing the starters with their hidden ability as the normal ability. I'm sick
Yep.
and tired of getting the same 3 over and over and over again.
Torrent,
because
Blaze, over. They're so
Yeah.
lame.
they're really lame because they have no competitive viability whatsoever. So
No.
even in the end with your starter, it's never going to be a competitive creature anyway, because you're going to box it and get the one that has the hidden ability afterward, which is what made Incineroar, top tier for, a dark type prankster type thing, because it got fake out and it got intimidate, and that way overdoes, friggin' Blaze. any day.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, whenever you get, I wish they'd just completely get rid of the 3 base game abilities for the starters and just go straight to the hidden ability. Make it worthwhile.
And
Make it so
sometimes
that the one, huh?
sometimes it's so bad that like even with like Blaze, right? Blaziken's still good just because like its stats are good. But then you look at a Pokemon like Superior that without Contrary literally can't play the game.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I see that.
I'd like to see them forego those starter abilities completely and let us keep our starter Pokemon with the hidden ability so that if we wanted to, we could take that straight to the top with us if we wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Or at least make it easier to for your starter specifically choose between or just make it an easy change. Because I know there's like they have the items now that let you change abilities. Maybe just give you one in the beginning that's like in your starting home PC, like they give you a potion, just one of those, and you could just immediately change it to the ability that you want. Just so, like you said, we're not stuck with Blaze for the whole game. And if you want to save it for later, cool. All right, then you like change the ability of another mon. That's awesome. But at least give you one just so you don't have to start with one of the lame 3. Or like you said, if they're willing to just get rid of them, because I understand how they're like somewhat viable for people who are like hyper casual and literally just don't know. And you're like, your Pokemon's at a 3rd HP and you just want your favorite move to do more damage. I get that. But like, even kids under like, if you watch like the VGC tournaments, like 7-year-olds get that like Contrary and Speed Boost are better than Overgrow and Blaze. So it's like, come on, like just, give me Greninja with Protean, right? Give me what I want. So I think you're right. I think either get rid of the abilities entirely, or if you really like that that's an option, then give us that same option to choose between the 2 or 3. And other than that, it's gonna be open world. Is that exciting? Do we like that? Did we like that in 8th gen? I mean, they gave us a teaser of it in 7th gen. It felt 7th gen did feel more open than a lot of the other games, but also like it's Tutorial City and it's such a different game than the rest that like kind of got bogged down and all that. But Gen 8 was really open. It was still just 2 circles, which every game's just a couple of circles, so not that different for me. It didn't really feel as open world as I think they wanted to. But this game is supposed to be like Arceus, where it's just a big open area with just you can just do anything you want at whatever pace you want. Is that attractive, or are we more interested in the OG Pokemon? Just you're going on a specific route that maybe when you get to Vermilion City and past that, you can break off and do whatever gym you want and then meet at the same end spot. Or are we more interested in the fact that, maybe I want to go to this town and then run halfway across the map to do another thing and then meet up somewhere in the end that doesn't really matter. Just it all ends in one place. So
Yeah, I think Sword and Shield was an expansion of just like a teaser of like the direction they're trying to go. Obviously now it's released. Now we know that it is going to be open world. But like even from the beginning when we didn't know that, that's kind of just what it felt like. Where like it had some features of the open world, but really it was just kind of the same as the routes, just bigger. I think a fully open world game is going to be pretty cool because a lot of like the appeal of Pokemon is like kind of the mysteriousness of like routes and like areas in the game and like puzzles and like that kind of stuff for me. And I know the last DLC for the last game did that really well. So I think it's going to be really cool, and I think people generally liked it in Arceus from what I've heard. I haven't played it, but I think most people did like it. So I think it will be a positive.
I have not played Arceus, but I did do a little bit with the 2 DLCs for Sword and Shield.
Crown Tundra was the one that was more open world, and then the the Island of Armor was the first one that was a little less open world. It was just an island with like a very serious like training arc going on during it. But yeah, those were the 2 DLCs for Sword and Shield.
Which one came out first though? Because I can't remember.
The Island of Armor came out first.
Isle of Armor. Okay, so that must be where because I got Cub Fu. Is that where?
Yes.
Cub Fu
Okay.
came?
Yeah.
Okay.
Urshifu and the rapid form, and then the single strike form was the end game of that. So yeah. You're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Because I never got to Crown Tundra, which I kind of feel bad because the DLCs to me were not like, even though they were the open world aspect, I never really felt like there was a goal to really obtain. It was just go out and wander. And I got sick and tired of trying to find all the little things to get it to kind of like complete these little side quests and stuff. And I wasn't a huge fan of the DLC, so I never even got to the second one. And I kind of feel bad because I know the legendaries from that are basically the meta. they're insane. And I'm kind of heartbroken that I didn't make it that far. But I do like the idea of the open world aspect more. I just wish they'd give us all of the puzzles and stuff that are still like in the open world aspect, and not just go out and find 50 of this goddamn mushroom.
Yeah. No, I know
That kind
exactly.
of gets old.
The Island of Armor was those silly little missions. Like the Island of Armor, I loved the Diglett challenge, just finding all the Diglett hairs. I just thought it was funny to find the little blonde hair sticking up. I thought that was so silly, and especially because you get the rewards you get from her are so good. Like at this point, when I replay the game, I do the Island of Armor challenge first because it scales with your level, so you can just start off and just never do the first gym and do that instead. And I love doing that because you can get like a Alolan Marowak there, and I love that Pokemon, a Alolan Raichu, and all these other Alolan forms super quick from doing the Diglett challenge. So like there's parts of the game of the Island of Armor specifically that I love to death. I love a lot of the battles and trainers in there, and then the Diglett challenge and just the diversity of Pokemon on the island. But at the same time, like you said, just like having to run from one spot of the island to the other to find a mushroom or a slowpoke that's running away from me. Like I'm just like, dude, can we like speed this up? Like I don't care. So I totally get that. The Crown Tundra just gets rid of all that though. It's just literally like they just plop you in the middle of it and they're like, find the birds and whatever else you can find. And you're like, that's it? And they're like, yep, that's it. And you're like, okay. And then you just spend the whole time just doing max raids and fighting the legendaries and doing all the puzzles to try to find them and catching all the new Pokemon that they added from, obviously they're not new, but new to the system because the Pokedex was so empty or it was so small at first, and then it just burst wide open with both the DLCs, especially the second one. And all the biomes are pretty cool in that one. Obviously, snow is a huge part of it, but I think they do a good job of not just only being in the snow. And it was a fun experience. I definitely enjoyed the first one more because I'm a sucker for like linear storytelling. That's just like I can talk to my friends like, yo, do you remember that time when that slowpoke ran at you? And they're like, yeah, of course. But then you think of the Crown Tundra and you're like, that's crazy how like I found a Torkoal, and they're like, yeah, man, I don't know. I found a Krabby, and you're like, cool. And the only thing you can really bond over is if you do it together in the max raids, which is always fun. The fact that you can like load into other people's games is cool. But and then the legendaries, but I've never really been that player that's like, oh, whoa, a legendary. It's been like, I look at the meta, I'm like, I guess I need Galarian Zapdos now, and I go and catch it, and I hope I get a good one. And if I don't, I just keep soft locking. So like, I don't know. So I never really cared about that part of the game, but I really liked the Island of Armor and the little stories that they were telling through that. And then of course the base game, I think the storytelling was really cool. I think that I'm a big fan of Ball Guy. Ball Guy is my dude. I think he's a helpful guy. so if in the new game they keep some sort of like narrative going that is like consistent no matter where you jump around in the game, I'm down. But the minute that you turn it into Legend of Zelda, I'm like, I'm just gonna go play that. So, and I promise you that's a lie. I'm not gonna play Legend of Zelda. I'm not a big Zelda head. The one Zelda I do like is the one where it's linear. It's literally, I love Link's Awakening because it's like, I just walk in a line and then the game's over when I did it good enough. Huzzah! Cool.
Yeah,
So,
I think the Pokemon titles have lacked a very decent campaign, which, you know, generally when it comes to Pokemon, all we're doing is just getting our badges, beating the Elite Four, being the top of the game, and then going out and like, you know, completing the decks and stuff. It's you know, rinse and repeat, do it again over and over and over again. Where this is the same song and dance, just ninth time around now in another country. Which, by the way, the Spain Portugal theme is going to be pretty neat. I hope they take advantage of that and make sure we have lots of port type cities and a lot of seafaring type things, because I'm kind of hoping that's what they're focusing on, because with Sword and Shield with Galar, there wasn't for the UK
puddles.
being an island type setup, there really wasn't any water aspect to it. I mean, yeah, I guess for the DLCs there were, but it wasn't even that expansive. It was just little dotted island type things. So they didn't really utilize it. Like I actually miss one of the best things I enjoyed was going underwater in Ruby and Sapphire and exploring the underwater aspect. And I feel like they've really missed some of these opportunities with these heavily water-based countries that they've just kind of ignored.
Let me put something in your mind for a sec on the Ruby and Sapphire thing, because even with all the water, because the water in HM was negligible. It was an island first, and then there was water around it. So you really didn't need to interact with the water at all. It never got you anywhere, right? Except like a mission that might be on one of the small little islands. That meant nothing at the end of the day. So like I don't think there was enough water in 8th gen at all. It was just literally puddles. But in 3rd gen, remembering taking Mr. Briney's ship from Dewford to Slateport and seeing the shipwreck and not being able to get there until way later in the game and having to remember that you saw it and then surf that route, that's what I want from water and Pokemon, is that level of like, look at that thing. You can't do that right now, but remember that thing. And the shipwreck wasn't that cool. I mean, it got you Ice Beam, which is cool, and it got you a couple other cool stuff. Like, it wasn't that crazy, but it was like, it made me, without the need of any storytelling, want to go there. And I want a lot of the new games to be that. I just wanted like a part of the game to be compelling for me to go there. And maybe the shipwreck is just that for me. Maybe other people saw the shipwreck and was like, whatever, man, I don't care. But then they see like Foulbower Town or like collecting ash and this whole aesthetic of this town with meteor falls and stuff like that is cool. And I like hanging out here. And I liked in the old games feeling like there's a sector of the map for me and what I want to do. I feel like in the recent games, it really just hasn't been that, especially in 7th gen. I think in 8th gen, like I was obsessed with the fairy town. The fact that you could touch all the mushrooms and they glowed. I was like, oh, this is awesome. But a lot of the other towns are just like, here we're in a valley where there's grass, and you're like,
Yeah.
cool, dude. And then like the 4th gen's town, I love sand towns. Sand towns are my thing, but it's like our thing is that there's sand and that's it. There's no like aesthetic beyond that. And you're like, man, what? Okay. But then you have Fairy Town, you're like bumping into everything. It's awesome. And then you have Ice Town, and there's hot springs everywhere, and there's a sick diner, and there's so much clothes to do there. And I had Shield, so I had the cool 6th gym leader who's the lady, and I'm like, cool, dude. I like this. This is awesome. But then you go to like, some of these other gens, and you're just like, okay, this is Wild Pony Canyon, and it's a canyon, and there's a bird sometimes, and you're like, okay, I don't want to go back here after I'm done. There's nothing cool for me here. And I think, like you said, with the storytelling, I think some of the gens have fallen short. I think the storytelling of 4th gen was like probably my favorite. I liked the Team Galactic arc. That was fun. I liked the Mesprit, Azelf, and Uxie kind of thing going on. 2nd gen had an awesome story as well. I thought it was really cool, especially going back to 1st and hearing about the aftermath of Giovanni and interacting with his son and Lance and stuff, and that's all cool. 3rd gen didn't really have a story. It was just like, does my dad know I exist? That's the basis of the game. Also, there's pirates and earth scientists. They sometimes mess with you, but it's really not that big a deal. And 5th gen, there's like terrorists, which is like maybe a little much for a kid's game, but whatever. It's cool, I guess. So, but like 6th gen, I don't even really remember. I know there's like a guy whose Pokemon died, and he's pretty upset about that. And there's a guy with red hair. And then you have 7th gen, which is like this island doesn't have a league champion yet. That's your whole thing. And then there's a cool bad guy team that you're sometimes friends with. And then there's a mom involved. That's cool. And I don't know. But like a lot of these games, a lot of the stories come from the post game. Like 6th gen specifically, not with X and Y, but with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the Delta episode. So much fun. I sunk so much time into doing the Delta episode in Gen 6. And then in Gen 7, going to like the world tournament and meeting all the old gym leaders from the first game, having to fight red and blue again. Loved that. That was awesome. And Unova had a similar thing too. And then 3rd gen had the Battle Frontier. So like similar stuff all around. But make the actual game as engaging to me as the post game is. I love the post game in all these games. Just make the ride there as enjoyable. That's what I want. And maybe in an open world game, there's more room for that. There's more room for that expression and really like down in the weeds detail in the story. But I'm also worried that they're going to rest on their laurels and just say like, you're going to like this game because you can walk around everywhere. Good luck. And you're like, what about like, is there like a bad guy? And they're like, nah, remember the last game where the bad guys were just dudes that yelled? Yeah, we're going to do that again. Except this time they're going to stomp. They're going to call it Team Stomp, and they like to kick on the ground. And you're like, oh, because they're in Spain and it's soccer and stuff. They're like, yeah, man, I guess. And you're like, cool. Okay. So I really hate something that's like uninspired, like Team Yell and all that stuff. But I like the multiple rivals thing that they did in Gen 5 and Gen 8, where you're like Marnie, Hop, and Bead, I think is how you pronounce the name. I liked that. I hope they continue with that with the multiple rivals. And I just hope to make a fun game that I just like don't want to put down like I did with like once I beat Sword and Shield and beat all the DLC. I was like, cool, go next.
I think the step towards the open world is going in the right direction. I mean, that's the kind of thing I like to do. I like getting distracted by a gajillion things like you do in Skyrim. And when you can take, if you wanted to take the next 6 hours of your gameplay and ignore the main quest line, you can just go do whatever. I really enjoy having that kind of freedom in the game. But at the same time, as much as you like the Diglets, watching her go try to find 100 Diglets, I'm just looking at this. It's like, God damn, this would be like if I actually had to find the Ninroots in Skyrim instead of just ignore their existence, except for the ones that goes, "Hey, I'm a Ninroot, pick me up."
Yeah.
I
I only enjoyed it because of the payoff. So yeah, I can totally see if you're not even interested in the payoff. It's just like, I just gotta find another one of those dudes again. What the heck?
If it's optional, then more power to it. I don't mind having those kind of quests there. I just don't like if I've got to find 100 Diglets from the main quest line. Oh my god!
Well, thankfully you didn't.
Yeah,
You didn't need to do, but I went and got a freaking walkthrough to make sure I could find all the damn things. That got
Dude,
old.
it was so hard. I tried as hard as I could. I missed like 7, and I'm like, I cannot
Same.
find these dudes. I don't know where they are. And so I looked up every round. I'm like, where are these Diglets? Where are they? Where are you keeping them? And they're just like in a dumb place, like in a patch of grass. And you're like, yeah, I wouldn't have looked there.
Yeah, and the first 20 were fun. It was like, oh look, a Diglett, oh look, a Diglett. And yes, I do get a kick out of the Alolan Diglett, even though people laugh at it. But after like the 35th, 40th Diglett, and you do get back the Pokemon from Alola, which is fantastic because I liked a lot of them. By the time I got to like the 45th, 50th Diglett, I was like, I am so over Diglett. I am so over these Diglets. I just need to go and just find them just so I can check it off as like I completed this stupid quest.
Yeah.
There is one thing that it's not going to be in 9th gen. There's no way in hell. The open world is kind of a step towards making this possible, but I really want to see an actual real multiplayer at some point where I can run around the world with her and catch Pokemon and stuff. And it can be split. It can go in split screen for like the battles and stuff when we battle separately. We don't always have to be battling together and things like that. I just want to be in the world, with my friends, with my wife, and whoever else. Yeah, that's huge to me. I mean, that's why I play mod at Minecraft, because there's that mod Pixelmon in there. I get that itch scratched with that, where I can go catch Pokemon and then go build my house and go mining and all that kind of stuff and do that all with her.
Mm-hmm.
That's I feel like it's got to be close, right? Because they had like Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, which is a 2-player game, which was like, okay, that game wasn't that great, but like that's a start, right? And then in Gen 8, you could load into other people's games and walk around. You couldn't really interact with each other outside of like clicking on each other and whatever, but beyond that, it was like what you just couldn't really, it didn't feel like what we wanted. Hopefully this game has some sort of addition on that. I really hope they do. But something you're saying too, I want them to go in the direction of like Stardew or like Minecraft or whatever, where you can just like craft things and there's more things to do outside of Pokemon. Like you're in the world of Pokemon, but you got a house, right? Or something like that. That isn't just your mom's house. I would love that kind of stuff.
The little bit of stuff they were doing with like curry making and stuff was kind of going down the road of crafting a bit. So they've toyed with it. But yeah, it would be nice to see a lot of that added in too, because that's like the next even step further. It's like, yeah, this is becoming incredible now at that point.
I think they're too worried about keeping it dumbed down too, because I don't know if you've gotten to see what your character in Scarlet and Violet looks like, but dang, the art style is actually kind of scary now. At the very least, with the anime style look, you didn't really feel like you were a child. You just felt like that you were just an anime character, and it didn't matter what age you actually were. This time, you're a child. You are just straight up a child, and it's kind of freaky looking. They have gone away from that anime art style, and I am not on board with it at all.
Maybe they'll listen on, like the creators of Sonic.
Yeah,
you never know.
Maybe they'll hear our cries. But yeah, no, I have seen it. I'm right there. I'm like, ugh. Just give me a huge little pixel head and some little stubby feet, and I'm happy. I don't need all this. I don't need
Start with a
polygonal,
crocodile.
multi-polygonal children rendered in my games. I'm cool. I'm chilling. Let me be the starter Pokemon. Let me be Quaxley.
There you go.
I don't know. They're just so worried about trying to make it clear that this game is for children that they're just not even give us that. They're not even gonna give us that edge anymore of, well, it's an anime character. It could be whatever age you attach to it. No, this time it's gonna be a child and you're not changing anything about it. And that's what you're going to have because, we're going to spoon feed you this for the rest of your life. And you're not going to argue because you're going to buy the game anyway.
Or maybe, or just maybe, your character's actually going to grow older through the game.
Reminded me of real life. Nope. Nintendo won't do that.
Oh.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think the anime design was definitely cool. And I think from the perspective of when I was a kid, playing Pokemon when I was like 5, playing like Pokemon Silver and Blue and stuff. At that time, the character was older than me. Obviously now, no. But like I was being like a teenager or preteen, like kind of cool. Like I like RPing as like an older kid who's not quite an adult yet. They still have to like fight the system a little bit because it's against them because you're just a kid. But yeah, I liked that. So I'm wondering from the perspective of kids, is this even more relatable? It's like, oh, I'm a kid, they're a kid. Because when I was a kid, I was like, if I get to be like a teenager or whatever, that's cooler than being what I am already. I already know what it's like to be a kid. I go to bed at weird times. I eat things and feel weird. I don't care. I don't want to do that. I want to be a cool bandana wearing teenager with a torchic running around hoeing. That's what I want to be. Or at the time I thought he had white hair, but now I know it's a bandana, which ruins that whole illusion, but whatever. But yeah, that's what I want. I want to be that guy. Or I want to be backwards hat from second gen. I want to be that guy. But now I'm baby.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's what we all want to play in our games is to go back to being prepubescent 8 and 9-year-old that is just like, yeah, I want to go out and take on the evil mafia.
Yeah, because that's what I was up to. No, I totally wasn't like climbing trees and shit. So
And you guys weren't doing that when you were younger?
I was not fighting the mob when I was 8 or 9. No, I didn't start
Wasn't
doing that till
trying.
maybe
I lived next.
maybe sophomore year of high school. I started fighting organized crime units. So that's all I had on Pokemon. There's not a lot.
Don't make us look that young anymore. That's just, I wasn't a fan.
But I think we've filled our time pretty well. I was going to mention another game, but maybe for a whole other podcast, we can do something. What I want to do, as maybe not a spoiler because this isn't set in stone. To see maybe people in the audience can get generated this. I love card games. It's something that I don't know if I've mentioned too much on the podcast, but love card games. I would love, if not the podcast, but just an episode of just recorded content to just get involved with some card games with some people in the community. I know Easton also plays a lot of card games, and I'm sure he'd be down for something like that to produce some content like that. So we were gonna mention some cool card game stuff. I know, shout out to anybody who plays Magic and enjoys New Capenna. I'll just do that. But yeah, if anybody wants that type of content, I'm happy to produce it. I'm sure I could get anybody else involved in that. But that's all I have. I'm excited for all these new games we've talked about. I know we were hypercritical of a lot of them. I know we're like, don't make Pokemon stand up. I hate being a kid. Make Overwatch too good. Make Gundam look like Gundams. I don't know. But at the same time, like, we're also putting ourselves out there with these criticisms, hoping that these companies listen to us and make the games that we want so that we can enjoy them and love these games without having to criticize them. But now during all these betas and these release for Pokemon where there's no beta, obviously, but like, it's time for them to get feedback. This is the time where we got to be critical. So if it sounds like we hate this game or these games, I promise you we don't. We're just like, we want what's best for them, and what's best for them is to be enjoyable long term and make these changes now rather than when it's too late. So
This is why I still have some hope for that Gundam game.
right, yeah.
Come
That's the
through
one I
for
am
us,
the most worried
please.
about, but I want a Gundam game to be enjoyable. I want a competitor for Overwatch. Last time we did this, it was Battleborn and Paladins were competitors. Who plays those anymore? Battleborn doesn't exist anymore. So like, wow. So I don't know. But yeah, I would love some healthy competition within the FPS genre. So
Any closing statements, Easton?
I don't think so.
All right. Does anyone want to hit any plugs for their Twitch channel or anything before we head out?
Follow Rom Girl, if not sub. I mean, there's charities now, gang. Get involved. Show some love out there. We're all, I mean, not that you haven't been, but if you have, you know who you are. If you haven't shown enough, we encourage it. Anyone in the community, follow their streams. I'm sure everyone here knows people, but just that extra little bit helps, I'm sure. I know when I pop into anybody in the community's chats, if it's 100 people, if it's one person, everyone here is really nice, and they're just like, you say hey, and they're like, oh, what's going on? Talk to me. So I like that about a lot of people who are in here. So, and everyone I've met through it has been really nice. So go out there and meet the community, especially if they're not in your circle. Like I realized that a little late, but I'm there now where I'm like, just because they don't play Overwatch doesn't mean they're not cool. And a lot of people I've realized that don't play Overwatch are cooler than me. Weirdly enough, they do all this other stuff I want to know more about, and they're most likely down to talk about it. So it's been nice. So shout them out. Shout out us. I know our last episode has the most views, which is awesome. So let's keep that train going. More people watching more episodes means we can produce more content and do more videos and stuff you guys are interested in. I know right now we're in a little bit of a content drought because Q4 looks like the time that everything's going to come out, but we can make content out of nothing. We're talented individuals, or bored, talented or bored, whatever, whichever one comes first. So we'll get it going. I'm excited to do more of these.
And I'm looking forward to picking up the streams again, especially with the beta now out, because that'll give me a new reason to hop back onto the Overwatch hype train and see where it goes from there.
Maybe I'll stream. Maybe I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, bring it back. But hey, all, if you're interested in seeing her channel, it is actually going to be listed down in the description here. So be sure to check her out. Her stream is pretty fun to watch, if I don't say so myself.
She's engaging as a
biased at
content
all.
creator,
Not
whether you
biased
like
at
it or
all.
not. There you go.
And if you are interested in any way of getting more involved in the community, don't be afraid to reach out. You can do it right through our website by clicking on volunteer, or you can actually message me directly. I don't bite. I like to chat, believe it or not. And there are lots of other ways you can support the community too, other than time. We have a Patreon. You can donate directly to PayPal. Now that we're 501c3, the fees that we pay on PayPal is going to be discounted. So we actually get to keep more of that money coming in. We're trying to work something out on our merch store here coming up too. Hopefully we can get those with some better rates where we're getting to keep more of that money. And we can keep all the fun stuff going on in the community here in Orphery. Lots of fun stuff here. So thank you all for joining us. I hope you enjoyed listening to us talk about these games, and we look forward to seeing you all in the next episode.
Bye.
Deuces.